So was I.
Hi, Miss Karina. How are you?
Good.
Good to see you. Yeah, me too.
Hi there. How are you? Good. You made it. I did. I figured you're all the way.
Traffic.
God knows.
I work there, but not there.
We would like to begin the swearing-in ceremony of Police Chief David Honda. On a quick note, there's lights on the two sides of the entrances, and I noticed they're flickering on and off. Make sure you don't lean on the light switches. We're going to begin this meeting. If we can, for this meeting, to lead the meeting, we'll have Interim Police Chief David McCartney will lead the oath of office of our new police chief.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, council members, police personnel, city staff, distinguished guests, members of the public, Chief Honda, his family, and friends. I'm Deputy Chief David McCartney, and it is with great pleasure that I welcome you here for the swearing-in of Watsonville Police Chief David Honda. If everyone would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing as I welcome Pastor Ryan Bell of Green Valley Christian Church to the podium to give the invocation.
Please join me as we pray. Our Heavenly Father, you are the creator of all things that we see and all that we cannot see. And everything exists because of you. Everything has come from you, and everything belongs to you to bring you glory as our Lord and Creator. Father, your mighty hand has been involved in all things since the dawn of creation, and you, Lord, are the center of mankind and man's pursuit to honor and glorify you. Holy Scripture reminds us that you, Lord, are our God and that you are ever present in our lives, showing us the love, compassion, and mercy that we, imperfect persons, so desperately need. Father, you give freely those blessings to all of your children. Lord, you are also with us as we transition in life. Today, Father, we ask your blessing over this transition within the great city of Watsonville. As we move the mantle of leadership of the men and women who serve this city in faithful roles as protectors, peacekeepers, and promoters of justice, from retired Chief Manny Solano, who has faithfully led this department with strength, compassion, and diligence, to Chief David Honda, who has been called by you, Lord, to assume the role of Chief of Police for the city of Watsonville. We ask that in these difficult times to be an officer of the law, that you will continue to encourage and bless these men and women who give so much of themselves for this community. For Chief Honda, Lord, we pray for the strength and courage that you gave Joshua as he led the nation of Israel into the promised land. Lord, give Chief Honda the wisdom of Solomon, the boldness of Daniel, to stay the course you have called him to as a leader of the men and women of this great department. And let them all continue to bring you honor and glory as they serve you as well as this community. Lord, we ask these blessings today, tomorrow, and for the rest of the days until your glorious return. In your holy name, amen. You may be seated.
Thank you. Thank you, Pastor Bell. I would like now to acknowledge our distinguished guests who are able to join us this evening. Santa Cruz Sheriff Jim Hart and Under Sheriff Verinsky. Chief Escalante from the Capitola Police Department. Assistant Chief Dave Knopf from the San Jose Police Department. Chief David Swing from the Morgan Hill Police Department. Berkeley Brandon, Chief Assistant of the District Attorney's Office, Monterey County. Captain Dave Lara and his wife Thea, Santa Clara County Sheriff's Office. Chief Gamaz from the Redwood City Police Department. Chief Manny Martinez, Daly City Police Department. Chief Dave Hober, Monterey Police Department, and retired Watsonville Police Chief Terry Medina. Thank you all for being here this evening. I'd now like to introduce City Manager Charles Montoya to say a few words.
Thank you, Chief McCartney. Thank you all for coming tonight. I'm actually ecstatic and excited to see the support of the entire community in the region come out for Chief Honda's swearing in for him to start his career here as police chief. You know, the process, was long, and I think I made Chief Honda and the other applicants, hang out there for a little while because I wanted to make sure that this person was the right individual for the community and the council, myself, everybody, and I don't think I could have made a better choice. I think we are fortunate to have him. In his 25 plus years as a police officer, he's had every role and done everything in law enforcement. And now he gets to take the role of police chief. And I thank you for coming. I thank you for accepting, and I look forward to working close to you every day. Thank you.
Chief Honda, on behalf of the men and women who serve and who has served in the Watsonville Police Department, I'd like to officially welcome you to our police family. One of the unique characteristics of our agency is the high quality of relationships that are built. Like any large family, we sometimes disagree, but we generally care for one another and the public that we serve. Each one of our employees will help you carry on the mission of the police department in providing quality service to the residents, visitors, and businesses to the city of Watsonville. The invocation is going to be given by Judge Deneen Guy. Judge Guy has been a Superior Court judge since her appointment by Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger in June 2006. Judge Guy received her bachelor's degree from Western Illinois University and a JD from the Monterey College of Law. She was previously employed by the Monterey County District Attorney's Office as a Deputy District Attorney. If I got to have Judge Guy, Chief Honda, his wife Darren, and his son Jeremy please join me to the front for the oath of office.
That'll break the ice. Yeah.
First of all, welcome to our county. We are thrilled to be here today to be part of this celebration. Anytime that there is a change of authority, it obviously engenders a lot of support, but in this community you will find that we are all very closely tied together. The relationships between the court and the Watsonville Police Department are historic. We are in this same building and have our Superior Court second courthouse in this building because of those relationships with the city council, with the citizens of Watsonville, and for a very long time we have had a very close relationship and ties to the police department. We are so looking forward to building that relationship with you, also with your city manager Montoya, since the two of you are starting these new relationships, and so we're very thrilled to embrace you and your family, have them here in our community, and you'll find that those friendships and many things happen in this community by just an idea and a phone call. Things generally happen, and people come out and support you in so many ways. So we're thrilled. We know that you have ties to our community in so many ways. My son is also part of your department, so he's one of your cadets. So I'm very, very privileged. So I'm very privileged to also be here as part of an extension of the Watsonville Police Department. The chiefs that are here today, and obviously Chief Solano, who is teaching class today and couldn't be here, we're all very closely tied, and it's those friendships over the years that have made such a difference. And we know that you're going to give all of the service to this community and be part of the larger criminal justice community here as well. So we're very thrilled, and why don't we have your family come up and stand with you? They don't have to do anything, just witness. Have the easy part. All right. All right, I'll ask you to raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, David Honda, do solemnly affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. Chief Honda now would like to say a few words.
Thank you, Dave. Wow. If you could see what I can see from my perspective right now, it is very overwhelming and very humbling for me. First, I'd like to thank the mayor, city council, and the city manager, Charles Montoya, for having the confidence in me to be the new chief of Watsonville. And I want to thank all my friends and colleagues and my San Jose Police Department family for being here tonight and taking time out of your busy schedules to visit this ceremony. I'm honored. To the community, local and regional leaders, thank you for being here and supporting your Watsonville Police Department. Now, I have a lot of individuals to thank tonight, and each one of them have helped me in one way or another. And I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge them tonight. So I know all of you have seen the Academy Awards. And generally they start playing music when the person up front is talking too much. So please bear with me. And Natalie, please don't start playing the music wherever you are. Thank you. Anyways, first and foremost, I want to thank God for blessing me with this opportunity with my family and with a great career that I've had. And my beautiful wife of 23 years, and my son Jeremy, and my other son Christopher, who couldn't be here tonight because he's off at school. But you are why I do what I do. And I want to thank you for always supporting me throughout the last 26 years of law enforcement. And to my beautiful wife, Darren, you are my best friend, and you are my pillar. And I want to thank you for your support and all your love all these years. And I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for you. And to my Idaho contingent, my mom and dad, thank you for driving down from Post Falls to see this ceremony. And I want to thank you both for instilling in me integrity, my faith, and that gritty work ethic that has got me through this far. So thank you very much. And to my sister Renee and her family, and my niece Danielle, thank you for always supporting me and my family. And to my other siblings, my brother Sean and my sister Tracy, who couldn't be here tonight, but I want to thank them also. And then the next group of people I want to list is people that have really impacted me throughout my career. And I see some of you here, but some of them couldn't make it, but I still think it's necessary that I mention their names. First of all is Tuck Eunice, Chief of Los Altos Police Department. Sandra Spagnoli, Chief of the Beverly Hills Department. Junior Gammons, I saw you over here, Chief of the Redwood City Department. Manny Martinez, Daly City Chief. Thank you for being here. Dave Hober, Chief of Monterey. I appreciate you being here, and thanks for all the help you've given me. Pat Dwyer, retired Chief of Palo Alto. I want to thank you for all your support and for helping me these last couple of years. I really appreciate it. Assistant Chief Dave Knopf, you and I go way back, and I thank you for being here tonight and representing the San Jose Police Department. And I want to make a special mention to Scott Seaman. He couldn't be here tonight, but he's a retired chief of Los Gatos Montessorino. He made an impact on me early in my career, and he mentored me all the way up until this day, so I want to thank him especially. And now to the community. I love this city. It's a beautiful city. Its richness, diversity, and resilience is beyond comparison. And I'm very humbled by all the outpouring of support that I've received since the press conference last month. I'm grateful for all the cards, the emails, the phone calls, and the flowers. Your support has touched me very deeply. Thank you. Now, the priority for this department, as it is with any police department, is really about public safety. And to be effective, we need to lean on our greatest asset, and that asset is the community in which we serve. So I promise to always continue to strengthen that relationship between us and the community. Now, to the members of the Watsonville Police Department, as I've mentioned before, I'm honored to be now a part of your family. You have a reputation for being hardworking, proactive, and most importantly, you have a good working relationship with your community. No one does it better than you. And I want to thank retired Chief Manny Solano and former Chief Terry Medina, who I saw tonight. Thank you for all the hard work that you guys did in building that reputation. And Deputy Chief McCartney, thank you for carrying that torch during this process. And I will continue to build on that foundation that you have created. And I look forward to making it better and better. So Vince Lombardi, one of the most famous NFL coaches, said this: perfection is not attainable. But if we chase perfection, you can catch excellence. So as a police department, excellence is attainable. So my vision is this, and Pat, you can appreciate this, that every community member, every city employee, and every man and woman of the Watsonville Police Department believes that their department is the best in the nation. Because if every community member believes that their department is the best, it means they have faith and trust in their officers. If every city employee believes that their police department is the best, it means that we are working together effectively to impact the community. And if every man and woman of the police department believes that they are the best, it means that morale is high and we can accomplish anything and we will achieve excellence. So if we believe it and we strive for it, we will attain it. So a good colleague and good friend of mine, Gilbert Torres, told me years ago as a young officer, he said, Dave, as you promote through the ranks, never, ever forget where you came from. So from humble beginnings as a young kid growing up in the South San Jose area to that solo beat officer going from call to call, Gilbert, I have never forgotten, and I want to thank you for keeping me grounded. So in closing, as we move forward as a department, we will continue to serve with integrity. We will serve with excellent character. We will be accountable to ourselves and to the community. We will not forget compassion, and we will treat all people internally as well as externally, with dignity and respect. So to the city of Watsonville, I'm very proud to serve you, and I'm very proud to be here tonight as your new chief. Thank you very much.
So once again, before I turn it over back to Dave, a couple of things. One, first of all, Dave, I want to thank you. Being interim Chief McCartney, thank you. It is not easy to take over from a police chief such as Manny Solano. He did a phenomenal job. He did a lot of things for this community. And now we have Chief Honda coming in, and you did a wonderful job for this community, and you supported this council and myself this last number of months, and I want to personally thank you for doing that. It's really important to me, and I thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's my pleasure.
And I'd like to turn it over real quick to the mayor and members of council to make some comments. So, Mayor, if you would, please.
Thank you, and I also echo the same comments that the city manager did. Thank you. Any comments from the city council? Councilmember Bilicich?
I just want to say that I am so happy to have you here. I think it's going to be a great fit. You know, we had Chief Medina for a long time. We had Chief Solano. And even though we had our interim chief for a while, all of them were great. And the Watsonville Police Department is one of the best. People should not do crime in this town because our police officers, in collaboration with sheriff, FBI, everybody else, people get caught here. And I think that this is going to be a great fit for you. I'm very happy you're here, and congratulations.
Councilmember Dutra?
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I want to say thank you to Interim Chief McCartney. You are what represents the very best of our community, so thank you for filling in this time, so we appreciate it. Welcome, Chief Honda, to Watsonville. We are very excited to have you here. We're a place where chiefs become legends, so you have some big shoes to fill, and we look forward to you staying here a very long time. So thank you for coming, and I look forward to you chasing perfection, because in our community, which I think is excellent, you're going to be in a very good place. So, and after seeing over the years of the many chiefs that have been here, there's something very special about Watsonville, and that's why they stay. And I know for sure you will find that you will see that what's so special about Watsonville, and I know you will make this home for a very long time. So, welcome, and thanks for choosing Watsonville as well. Thank you.
Councilmember Garcia?
Chief Honda, I want to welcome you to my native Watsonville. I am confident that your skills, knowledge, integrity is what is needed for our police department, because they are already great, and you're going to make them even greater. And also for our community. Do know, though, you're going to be very, very busy. In fact, my first meeting with you, which I hope is very soon, I'm going to ask you to help us resolve issues of drugs, prostitution, and gangs at one of our local businesses. So welcome.
Councilmember Trina Kaufman-Gomez?
Thank you. For all law enforcement here, there's a great deal of respect, and that's from firsthand knowledge of working with you, patrol cars, going out and taking part of some of the ride-along experiences here. And McCartney, I'm very pleased with the work that you've been able to do to cover for what we've got to do here, and the replacement in terms of making sure that it's the right fit, because that's what makes a big difference for having that cohesion and working with the staff we have here. I've got a lot of pride in the staff that we have here, in working with them several hours throughout the random times of visits that we've had until after midnight or so. We have a very strong fabric in this community that we all welcome you in, that you'll see how we all really mesh together well with that. there's a big difference in culture from, I think, our community, which has been a positive influence for working here with the staff that we have. And I hope that that is all successful for us to continue with that and move it up a pace. There's times of transition we're going through. As you've seen, we have a new city manager, a new chief of police, a lot of things that are going on, and we're wanting it to be all a positive movement, motion forward. And we welcome you for participating with that. So welcome aboard. Thank you.
Councilmember Hurst.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Welcome, Chief Honda. You know, we're really fortunate that you've decided to put on our badge and welcome aboard, and it is a big responsibility, and we're here to provide the backup and the resources and whatever we can do to try and make your job and that of all the men and women in your team successful and competent and forward thinking. And so thank you very much for your willingness to step forward. And I also want to say that, you know, having all these officers from the East Bay and over the hill and our friends in Santa Cruz and lifelong residents here in the community turn out today to see your swearing in, and by one of the most prestigious judges that we have in the court system, and all the other folks that are involved in the legal profession and the judicial branch, to have them here today to welcome you and to acknowledge the importance of the job. We just say welcome and thank you very much, and thank you for your focus on integrity and respect and putting the community first. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Chief Honda, welcome to our beautiful community. I say this often, Watsonville is truly a special place, and all of our families are its heart. And so I thank you for committing yourself to service and to protecting our community. And I look forward to your wonderful leadership. I know Chief Solano has an extensive social media following, and I know that I spotted a morning breakfast with yourself, Chief Solano, Chief Medina, Chief Rodriguez over at the city of Marina, Chief Escalante in the city of Capitola. And I looked at it, and a lot of people did, and said, we have a wonderful family that has come through, has been touched by Watsonville, and carries that wherever they go. And so I just welcome you to our wonderful and large community. And I know that Sheriff Hart, Chief Vogel, Chief Escalante will be great partners throughout your career and will help elevate our community and our law enforcement partnership truly higher. So welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. You know, today it's a new day for us. We welcome you into our community, into our family. We believe that both our department, our city, and our city staff are a family here in Watsonville. We hope to have you for a long time. It's been a tradition of our police chiefs. I just want to say that we have a very dedicated police department here in the city. They have a strong work ethic, and I just want to congratulate you. Congratulations, Watsonville Police Chief David Honda. Thank you. I want to leave some last comments for the city manager as well.
One last thing I wanted to say before I turn it over to Chief McCarthy. I want to thank the panel of police chiefs between Chief Rodriguez and Chief Escalante for helping out with the interview process. Also, the community panel, who played a great role also in helping us decide to bring Chief Honda here. And also, I want to thank Sheriff Hart, who I reached out to him and the rest of the law enforcement community to try and get a general understanding of this valley and the city itself. So thank you all. Chief McCartney.
This concludes our ceremony, and I'd like to thank everyone for sharing in the occasion. With Chief Honda, his family, and our police department. A special acknowledgement and thank you goes to the Watsonville Police Officer Association, Watsonville Police Assistance Fund, the Japanese American Citizens League, the Police Department and Human Resource staff who made this ceremony and the reception following possible. You're all invited next door to the community room for a reception for Chief David Honda. Thank you very much.
City Council, can we please convene at 6 o'clock for closed session? Can we reconvene at 6 p.m.? We'll now begin this City Council meeting for April 12th. If we can have roll call.
Bielisich,
Present.
Alejo,
Here.
Tubman Gomez,
Present.
Dutra,
Present.
Garcia, Hurst,
Here.
Hernandez.
Here. If we can please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Really quick, if anybody needs any translation equipment, it's right over here on the left-hand side. Si necesitan equipaje para traducir, aquí está en la caseta. Para usar los aparatos de traducir, en español obtenga un aparato de la mesa junto de la caseta de traducir, préndelo y usa el canal 0. Cuélgaselo en el cuello con el frente hacia afuera. Si no puede oír, revise que el aparato esté encendido y sin obstrucciones. Solo funciona dentro de la Cámara de Concilio. Next, we'll move on to item 5, informational items, written reports only. Report of disbursements, and B, miscellaneous documents. Presentations and oral communication. This is oral communication from the public and the City Council. This time is set aside for members of the general public to address the council on any items that are not on the council agenda, which is subject matter to the jurisdiction of the City Council. Any members of the public?
Hagan. I'm a member of the Board of Directors of the Metro System. I have a little handout here that I'm asking your support to adjust, to really to lessen the reduction of the present Metro proposal, which would discontinue and cut the weekend service of
Excuse me.
79 and 72.
Board Member Hagan, that is on the agenda. It's the first item on the agenda.
I'm sorry.
This is for items that are not on the agenda.
I realize that. I didn't see it.
Okay.
Big crowd for that.
Sorry about that.
Good evening, council members. I'd like to start off by expressing my condolences to Councilmember Dutra for the loss of his father. Condolences to you and your family. I hope that you guys are sticking strong and getting right through it. So, good evening. My name is Christian Garcia, and I'm a proud Watsonvillian, born and raised in this city. My family, like many families from Watsonville, immigrated to this community in the mid-1980s. And, you know, they worked in the fields picking strawberries and berries for a number of years. And ever since I can remember, my dad always carried a 2-liter soda bottle with him. Not water, but soda. And the long-term effects of that is that he continues to live with type 2 diabetes, a disease that is really struck in him and has made it difficult for our family, given the higher cost of the medication and whatnot. But the story of my father is no different from many of the families here in Watsonville. You know, from January to February, a group of community volunteers came together, and we went door to door to collect health surveys and inform families about the consumption of sugar-sweetened beverages and diabetes. Our goal was to increase the awareness and jumpstart a conversation and find ways that we could adopt policies to become a healthier community. Because you see, council members, recent studies have shown that the high consumption of sugary beverages is linked to the growth of type 2 diabetes in our youth, in our families. It's linked to cardiovascular diseases, obesity, and tooth decay. And if nothing is done about it, 1 in every 2 Latino children will develop type 2 diabetes in their lifetime. Over the course of the 2 months, we collected 4,000 petitions and surveys from community residents, and the results are alarming. 40% of the respondents reported that they were diabetic and have somebody in their family who has diabetes. 65% of the respondents reported that they purchased sugary beverages and consume them on a daily basis. And this is just the city of Watsonville. And 93% of them said that they would be supportive of placing a 2-cent per ounce tax on the distributors of sugar-sweetened beverages. But due to a technicality on our petition to place a measure on the November ballot, it was not accepted. And so what we are doing here today is asking you, council members, to place this measure on the November ballot. To clear up a few misconceptions that developed over the last couple of weeks, this is not a tax on groceries. It's not a tax on local businesses or consumers, but rather it is a health fee to be paid by the distributors of sugar-sweetened beverages, who are among the richest corporations in the world. The tax has not hurt local businesses in the nation of Mexico or in the city of Berkeley, where their constituents passed measures in 2013 and 2014. Rather, it has increased the consumption of healthier beverages like milk and water. A small 2-cent per ounce tax on distributors of sugary beverages here in Watsonville would allow us to create new funding to inform more Watsonville families about what they're consuming, and they are very receptive from our door-to-door conversations. They want to know more about it. They wanted that education. The money could also be used for recreational programs. Our soccer fields are overused, and we always need them. So we've collected 2,085 signatures from voters. They want to see this on the ballot, and I hope that you guys make the decision to put this on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Eduardo Montesino. I do also want to say my condolences to you and your family, Councilmember Dutra. But I also want to congratulate the council now that you have just installed your new chief and you already have your city manager, and want to congratulate all the hard work that all of you have put into those critical appointments to the city needed to move forward. So just want to thank you.
Buenas tardes, miembros del concilio. Mi nombre es María. Yo y mi familia somos dueños de Santa Rosa Market en el 436 East Lake del Distrito 2. Yo estoy aquí para pedirles, rogarles o insistirles que pongan como votación el impuesto a las bebidas azucaradas. Yo como dueña de mi negocio no seré intimidada por las industrias, porque yo sé que este impuesto nos afectará a los dueños, sino a los distribuidores. Ya es tiempo de que piensemos en nuestra comunidad y les demos ayuda para dejarles saber lo dañoso que es las bebidas azucaradas. Denos la oportunidad de ponerlo en votación para que votemos el día noviembre por esta medida. Gracias.
Buenas noches, miembros del concilio. Buenas noches a todos
Espérame,
ustedes.
vamos a traducir ahorita para atrás para en inglés.
Good evening. My name is Maria. My family and I own the market on East Lake in District 2. I am here to ask, plead, and insist that you place the tax on beverages. I, like an owner, I am not going to be intimidated by the industries, because this tax is not going to affect the owners, but it's going to affect the distributors. It is time that we think in our community so we can help to let them know the damage that these beverages, sugar beverages, are. Give us this opportunity to put this in the November ballot for this measure. Thank you.
Buenas noches, miembros del concilio, y buenas noches a todos ustedes, miembros presentes, miembros de la comunidad de Watsonville. Estoy aquí por apoyar una medida porque creo que es necesaria y porque creo que ha llegado el momento de decirles no a las compañías, corporaciones que están poniendo en riesgo la vida de niños y la vida de jóvenes y adultos. Como médico de la comunidad del condado de Santa Cruz, donde tengo más de 20 años trabajando como médico, he podido ver cómo los niños hoy en día consumen exageradas cantidades de azúcar, nada menos que en estas bebidas, que son verdaderos liquid candy. Eso es lo que es, nada más. Es vergonzoso cuando en otras ciudades, ya nos han dado el ejemplo, como la Ciudad de México, de que es necesario ponerle un tax a estas bebidas que tanto daño nos está haciendo. Es importante asimismo que esta medida, si no se ha podido conseguirla a través de las firmas, se las ponga en noviembre, porque creo yo que sería vergonzoso que no salga de ustedes una decisión unánime para ponerlas. Es igual lo que hacen las compañías como Pepsi-Cola, Coca-Cola, de lo mismo que hacían las tabacaleras anteriormente. Cuando era un estudiante de medicina hace 40 años atrás, las tabacaleras le decían al mundo entero de que no causaba absolutamente nada, ni siquiera cáncer. Todos los estudios científicos los tiraban debajo de la mesa. Y muchos médicos y científicos también al lado de las corporaciones tabacaleras hablaban a favor de ellas. Pero hubo un consenso de médicos y de científicos que dijeron no, ya basta. Entonces se hicieron los cambios necesarios. Y por eso hoy en día vemos que hay menos consumo de cigarrillos. Vemos jóvenes no como antes, que se veía bonito con un cigarrillo en la boca. Hoy en día ven a los niños pasar a lo largo de las calles de Watsonville con grandes cantidades de sodas. Cada uno de ellos. Y con unas hamburguesas en la mano. ¿Y qué se hace? Es lo mismo que cuando veíamos a los jóvenes pasar con un cigarrillo y eso era fan, y eso era bonito. Hoy en día vemos que tan fácil es abrir nada menos un McDonald's. Y se da permiso para hacerlo. Vergonzoso. Vergonzoso para esta ciudad pequeña. Cuando debería haber un consenso de que sabemos muy bien del daño que se le está haciendo a estos niños. Son expuestos a propaganda por la televisión, por las radios, por los medios, para nada menos que convencerlos de que está bien beber. Y nosotros aquí, ¿qué estamos haciendo? Dificultar una posibilidad de dar un ejemplo. Como pueblo, como comunidad, la diabetes y la obesidad nos está matando. Piensen en ello. Gracias.
Good evening, members of the community of Watsonville. I am here to support a measure because I believe it's necessary and I believe that it's time to tell the corporations no, that they're putting at risk the lives of our youth, our adults, like a doctor in the community in the county of Santa Cruz, where I have more than 20 years working as a doctor. I could see how the children consume large quantities of these beverages that are truly, truly liquid candy. That's all they are. It is embarrassing where other cities that are giving the example, like Mexico City, that it is necessary place in a tax to these beverages that are causing so much damage. It is important that this measure hasn't been possible because of the signatures. In November, I believe that it is embarrassing that it doesn't come from you, unanimous decision. That's the same thing that companies do, like Coca-Cola. That's the same thing that the tobacco companies did when I was a student 40 years ago. The tobacco companies told the whole world that they didn't cause cancer. All the scientific studies were thrown under the table, and a lot of scientists and doctors beside the corporations, they would speak in favor of the tobacco companies. But there was a consensus of scientists and doctors, and then the changes that were made were necessary. And there was less consumption of cigarettes. And it used to look nice to be walking with a cigarette. Nowadays, we see the young children in our communities with large quantities of soda, each one of them, and with a hamburger in hand. And what do? It's the same thing that would happen in the old days, that the youth would walk with a cigarette in hand. Today, it is not so easy, or it is easy to open a McDonald's. And it is permitted. It is embarrassing. It is embarrassing for this small city when there should be a consensus that we know that the damage that is being done to these children on TV, by radio, and by the media, to convince that it is okay to drink this. And today, what are we doing? It's difficult to give an example, like a city, like a community. Diabetes and obesity is killing us. Think of that. Thank you.
Hi, council members. I didn't expect to speak, so forgive me if I stammer. But I do believe in the cause. I signed the petition. Jesus and Desiree came to my house, and I signed the petition because I believe it's a good, worthy cause. I do have people in my family with type 2 diabetes, and they have discovered what they need to do to make a lifestyle change in their life. And I just came here directly from work because I thought it was a worthy cause, and I hope it does make it to the ballot, because I don't think it's asking too much to tax Coca-Cola and sugary companies to help people with educational programs to learn the truth about soda pop. And I grew up drinking soda pop myself, but I'm not addicted to it, and I don't drink it very much. But I know there are people that do have an addiction for it and to it, and it's terrible. You know, it's a vicious cycle, and I really hope this makes it to the ballot, and I would hope that you would see it that way too. Thank you.
I'm Nahara Villalobos. I am the former Watsonville Youth City Council, District 7, 3 years ago. So I came for what the Youth Council taught me is to come here to you guys and voice my opinions, what I feel is right, to let you guys know you guys are my representatives. Last Sunday, my family had a party. There was many soda, obviously beer too. The kids didn't want water. That was the least thing they wanted to do. Water for them was a punishment. And I noticed that I gained weight, and the hardest thing for me to do was to give up soda, especially Sprite. That is my favorite, and Mountain Dew. I come here because for the future generation, I don't want them to be addicted to soda. I want them to live a life healthy style. And with these statistics that I heard, it scares me for the future of Watsonville. This could really change Watsonville, and I hope you guys support it as well. Thank you.
Hello, council members. My name is Prairie Garcia. I'm a resident here of the city of Watsonville. I as well signed the ballot. I have 4 children, all through the school district here in Watsonville, and it means a lot to me for them not to drink soda. So it's really easy for me to control when they're young, when they get to be about junior high and they're walking home past all the markets, past all their friends. It's really easy for them to grab a soda. I think as a community, we need to work on this problem. The schools, the health, parents, families, everybody in the community needs to work together. As a small town, we need to look to see what resources we can get from outside sources as well to help us improve our health. The statistics are alarming. I don't want any of my kids to grow up with that. I have a father-in-law with diabetes, so it runs in the family. It's something that I believe the voters here, we've signed the ballot. We're hoping it comes up in November, and I'm just urging you all to support us in that.
Buenas noches, mi nombre es Rebeca Alcántar y soy una madre de familia y también trabajo para niños pequeños con necesidades especiales. Entonces hago visitas a los hogares y lo más triste es que los padres no solamente tienen que lidiar con las necesidades especiales de este niño, sino aparte problemas de un niño de 9 años, de 12 años y todo esto tiene que ver con el consumo de las sodas y Gatorade y todas esas bebidas que contienen grandes cantidades de azúcar. Es bien, para mí es bien doloroso ver que están lidiando no solamente con las malas condiciones de vivienda, con las necesidades de este niño, pero las condiciones de salud de toda la familia son afectadas por eso. Entonces yo no creo que no haya una razón válida para que ustedes no pongan en la balota en noviembre esta medida. Si de veras les interesa y les importa la comunidad de Watsonville, háganlo por favor. Se los pido como madre y como trabajadora en la comunidad. Gracias.
My name is Rebecca Alcantar, and I am a mother of a family, and I do work with small children with special needs. And I do visit homes, and the sadness of this is that the parents don't only have to deal with the special needs of these children, but they also have to deal with the problems of a 12 or a 9-year-old, and they all have to do with the consumption of Gatorade and all these drinks that contain large amounts of sugar. For me, it is very difficult that they have to deal with the bad conditions of their home, but also the needs of the child. and the conditions of health and the conditions of bad health is affected. I don't think that there is no valid reason why this cannot be placed in the November ballot. If this interests you and it is important for the community, please do it. I ask you this like a mother and a worker in the community. Thank you.
If the speakers can please line up too.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Juan Manuel García y yo vengo a decirles a ustedes que el lugar donde están, ¿verdad? No se lo ganaron muy fácil. La votaron, también así como nosotros estamos necesitando que ustedes nos apoyen, porque los que los pusieron ahí fue para eso, porque son servidores públicos, ¿verdad? Y yo les quiero decir, yo tengo diabetes. Por muchos años he tenido diabetes. Y me hubiera gustado, cuando a mí me detectaron el diabetes, que alguien me informara, que alguien me educara cómo hacer y cómo luchar. Esta enfermedad, los que la padecemos sabemos que es muy dura. Y como dicen por ahí, es un asesino silencioso, porque no sabemos qué es el próximo problema que vamos a tener con esta enfermedad. Yo he ido perdiendo poco a poco la visión, mis pies, algunos problemas del estómago y es una enfermedad que es muy cara, y le doy gracias a que estoy en este país y este país nos ha ayudado mucho en este sentido. Si yo estuviera en mi país, yo creo que yo hubiera muerto, ¿verdad? Entonces, no lo hagan por mí, ni por los que ya estamos grandes, háganlo por los que vienen abajo, por esos niños que necesitan ser educados, esos niños que necesitan que ustedes que están ahí sentados y tienen el poder que el pueblo les dio, porque el pueblo les dio el poder, ¿verdad? Que lo usen para que esta medida pase, porque es necesaria, porque es justa, y porque es lo que la comunidad necesita. No lo olviden, señores, es su responsabilidad y en su conciencia va a quedar que ustedes hicieron la decisión correcta este día al pasar esta ley en noviembre. Muchas gracias.
My name is Juan Manuel Garcia, and I come to tell you that where you are today, you have not got this easy. You were voted into, and just like we are looking for your support because the people who put you there, you are public servants. And I want to let you know that I have diabetes. And I've suffered from diabetes for some years, and I would have liked that when I was detected with diabetes, somebody would have educated me, would have told me how to fight. The people who have diabetes, it's hard, and like it said, it's a silent killer because we don't know what the next thing or next problem we will have with our sickness. I have slowly lost some of my vision, my feet, and some problems with my stomach. And it is a costly sickness. And I'm thankful that I am here in this country. And this country has helped us very much. If I would have been in my country, I might have died already. Don't do it for me and for those that are adults. Do it for those young children that need the education, the children that need, that you that are sitting here, that have the power, that the city and the community has given you, that you use it for this measure. It is necessary because it's just, and it is what the community needs. Please don't forget that. That's your responsibility. and your conscience is going to stay that you made that decision correctly this day to put this in the ballot in November. Thank you.
Good evening, City Council members and the community. My name is Tammy Stolzenthaler, and I'm representing the City of Watsonville's Public Works and Utilities Outreach Program. And I certainly don't want to change the topic here from diabetes, which is certainly a very important topic. And but what I do want to do is invite you to our City of Watsonville Day of the Child and Earth Day celebration. The festival is the 14th annual, and it's scheduled for April 24th on Sunday at our very own Ramsey Park from 12 to 4. This year we have over 50 organizations from within the community that are going to be offering information and exciting activities to all of our children and our families. At 1 p.m. we're going to have a special activity for community volunteers. We're going to be doing a planting activity with drought-tolerant plants in the front of Ramsey Park, and everyone is welcome. This is just a great way to join in and to give back to the community in the spirit of Earth Day and Dia del Niño. We're going to have a lot of special highlights this year. The White Hawk dancers will be with us at 2 p.m. Many children's groups will be performing and entertaining us all day on the stage. And we're even going to have a giant 50-foot litter exhibit, litter taken out of our very own Pajaro River. So the festival is free and food is available at a low cost. So please join us and spread the word. Thank you.
No one else? Public comment? We will bring it back to council for council comments. Councilmember Hurst. Oh, wait a minute.
Hello, guys.
If there's more speakers, if they can please line up behind.
Okay, so I'm a community resident from Watsonville, obviously. Grew up here, born and raised here, and I see a lot of change that needs to happen. And basically, I just want to be very brief with what I'm saying. And I just think change starts with you, and it might be cliche, but the more clear you are, the more clarity you could add to the collective vision that we all wish to paint and that we all love to respectively talk about. And I just think we should target the individual, everybody, and I created a free website. It's called theplanetaryfoundation.com, and it's giving you a free, I created it through WordPress, I'm not a crazy coder or anything like that, pretty effortless, YouTube. I created it, and I've been well informed empirically through a lot of mentors that I've come across in the experience of my self-education. Nothing big, and I just put it all together, what they taught me, and I'm giving everyone a free diet plan, free workout plan, free day off schedule, and I feel like I'm giving it for free because I feel like that intention outweighs me needing to capitalize on someone who might need it, me needing to profit off of the less needy. I feel like that intention weighs more than needing to make money, because obviously people are suffering. The suffering is real out there. So what could we do about it effortlessly? Thus, I made it this website, theplanetaryfoundation.com. I've been promoting it since March 1st and on Facebook, and I have my own community nationwide, obviously. So, and I also paid a promotion website to broadcast it. So this is obviously just the beginning, and yeah, that's pretty much it. And yeah, it's temporarily down for a day because my credit didn't go through, but please write down the website. It will be up tomorrow, and it's free information for everyone. And yeah, that's just a brief note on what that is. Go for it, guys.
Thank you. No more public comment, right? Councilmember Hurst.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I am glad to hear the concern in the community about public health, because there's many impediments to public health in the community. I want to offer my condolences to Jimmy Dutra and the family. The passing of his father, very sad event, and caught us all by surprise. And so Our heart goes out to you, Jimmy, and family. You know, I happen to know Jim Dutra for probably 30 years or so, and he was a major leader in the agricultural community and farming sector, and a producer of wonderful goods and great kids. I want to congratulate Keith Boyle in his retirement. We had a nice going away party for him, and he has served the city very well and for a long period of time. Also, congratulations to the artists that are taking on the art wall right next door. You'll see it on the other side of Romo Park on the Petrusich building. We had a wonderful event with the Cesar Chavez Awards on the 24th that was well attended. Many great awardees there, and hopefully we'll hear more from them. On the 28th, there was a rail trail open house here in the City Council community room that was also well attended, and lots of information on building the trails and the future of rail, if there is one. So last week on Saturday, there was the Walk to Stop the Silence, and there was over 200 people participated in the Walk to Stop the Silence regarding ending child sexual abuse. And so you probably saw that in the paper, and the mayor and I and many other people, 200 people estimated were present. Recently, Fatima's jewelry store downtown, right across the street, opened up. It's always nice to see a new building come up in town, as well as an opportunity for downtown to make some economic recovery. We've heard the Earth Day pitch for the 24th, and no, there won't be any sugary drinks at Earth Day, as far as I know. Cab open house will be on the 28th, and that'll be a downtown event for you to enjoy as well. And there's a CASA volunteer appreciation coming up at the end of the month as well. One event I did make it to was a Monterey Vista mobile home park owners and tenants community meeting, and that's on Home Road, and that was very informative. And our community development folks were there with the concept of Neighborhood Watch. So I encourage everyone to support Neighborhood Watch. And lastly, many of you got to see the swearing in of our new police chief, David Honda, a great transition and a wonderful individual who will help lead public safety in this community. Thank you.
Councilmember Garcia.
Jimmy knows that my prayers are with him and his father. What the community may not know, though, is that in the last 2 years, 4 of us on the city council has lost a parent. But I think that all of us, what we do know, though, is they are gone, but we're still alive, and we have to live. And part of how we live is we continue to serve our community. I, too, attended several of the meetings that my colleagues will be talking about, including the Senior Citizens Luncheon and the Legislative Open House. But I just want to speak about one. We'd had a successful Cesar Chavez ceremony. However, sometimes we forget that in California, we celebrate Cesar Chavez's birthday, which is on March the 31st. On that day, CAB AmeriCorps interns invited the community to view the Cesar Chavez film, History is Made One Step at a Time. What this film did was show the struggles encountered in attaining basic rights for farm workers and all the work that Cesar Chavez did to get rights for farm workers. In addition to the film, they had 2 women whom our residents of Watsonville speak about their experiences marching, striking, and being arrested with Cesar Chavez. They also spoke about the difficulty farm workers continue to have with wages, housing, and health care. This day in California is recognized as a day of community service, and I hope that next year I will be able to organize something for Watsonville around community service on March 31st. A big thank you to Blanca, who is the CAB director for this intern program, AmeriCorps intern program, and appreciated what they did on March 31st. And that concludes my report.
Councilmember Dutra.
Thank you, Mayor. A few things. I'm just going to do my announcements first. I first want to say congratulations to Councilmember Trina Kaufman-Gomez for her award that she received from the Boy Scouts. I was going to support her that day, but that's the day my dad died. So I'm sorry. But my dad also was someone who barbecued for that event every year. So congratulations. I also wanted to say that during the last 2 weeks have been very hard on me, losing a father who has really taken its toll. But I wanted to say that I was sworn in for the board of directors for the Pearl Valley Shelter Service, and we have the Mother's Day run coming up on Sunday, May 8th from 7 to 10 a.m. So if you're interested in staying healthy and running, please go to the website or to on the Facebook page. You can sign up to do the run. We're expecting about 1,000 runners this year. Also, I attended Easter on the Farm at the Ag History Project. It was a great event. I went with my nephews, and I really enjoyed it, watching them hunt for Easter eggs and have a good time as a kid. You kind of live vicariously through them, because as you get older, things happen. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight and speaking on the issue that you were speaking about, the sodas. My dad was a diabetic as well, and he did have cardiovascular disease, which was contributed by the lifestyle that he led going as a young adult. So what you do put in your body will have effects later on in life. I personally don't drink soda. I actually gave it up last October. I have not had one soda since then. I've lost 10 pounds. It really does make you lose weight. But you know, we have to make decisions for ourselves to be healthy, because I just lived through something that no one wants to have to go through. And so it's important that we take care of ourselves, and I appreciate the effort that you guys are putting forward. No matter what happens, I think you guys need to continue the conversation, because type 2 diabetes in this community is very high, and with Latinos, it's even higher. So I commend you guys for all the work that you are doing. I wanted to say thank you to Mayor Hernandez and Council Members Bilicich, Kaufman-Gomez, Garcia, and Hurst for attending my dad's services, as well as City Manager Montoya, City Attorney Smith, City Clerk Beatrice, so many city staff and nonprofit directors, and the many family and friends that were there. We had 450 plus people between the church and the services, and it was a beautiful, beautiful send-off. So I want to say thank you for everybody, because during these times, your life is falling apart, but somehow you get the strength, and the strength is the people that are surrounding you and supporting you to get through that time. Politics are down at that point, and that's what is so beautiful. I want to thank the Watsonville Police Department, the Santa Cruz County Fairgrounds, Pearl Valley Cemetery, Mary Carvalho and River Nursery, Ron Heideke and Freedom Media, all the cards, calls, texts, emails, flowers, people bringing food over to me. I want to thank everybody, because you really, really helped me through a very, very difficult time. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Councilmember Trina Kaufman-Gomez.
Thank you. It was a lovely service, and I'm glad that you had him in your life. A few things that were going on in my couple weeks of time here, putting my feet in others' shoes with regards to the city staff here and what they do. It helps me as a council member have better perspective of what it is that we're fighting for the representation, the services our community needs to have. the safety of the law enforcement that we have for this particular community. So as a result of that, I've gone out with the Public Works Department and have a better visual of the complications we have of keeping our community clean, which it evolves around the parking issues. If you want your streets clean, move so that we can help clean them. And I know Public Works would like to see a bit more proaction about that with your neighborhoods, because I know I want my neighborhood clean, and I would think that everybody here would want the same. So be prepared to move the cars around so that the sweepers can come through and you can get your trash picked up and things are clean in your neighborhoods, and have pride for that. On top of that was doing a ride-along with the police department. I've actually done several, and it's always a new experience each time I go out to find out how safe our neighborhoods are with the law enforcement that we do have here, how quickly they are responsive to the calls that are being made for families that are in emergent, high adrenaline state of need for their services and for the safety of our community here. So I commend them on the work that they do, all of the work being done by the city staff here, and having an understanding and a better perspective of what they're doing, how they need our support as council, and the services that we provide to you as members in our community here. I will mention also, I see Rayvon in the corner, and I gave him some of my time for the pitch a couple weeks ago. But the 23rd, there will be an event at the airport, and it is a car show. And I think it's our first car show that we'll be having. So online, there's registrations for vehicles, I think prior to 1972. And it should be a great event for you to come on out and to take a look at the airport, the resources there, enjoy the car show, and get to know what's going on in our neighborhood and what the city is putting together locally here. And at this point, again, welcome Police Chief, and we'll see more of him in the future. And that's my conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Bilicic.
Well, I too also want to offer my condolences to you. I think it was a great service and a great tribute to your dad by this community. So it was a good event, even though it's a sad event. I also want to commend Councilmember Kaufman Gomez. You know, the acknowledgement that was given by the Boy Scouts and the honor that she earned at the Skillicorn Barbecue was a great award, and I was glad to be part of that celebration when you were honored. We also had a meeting with the Zone 7 Finance Group. This is a group that's meeting to talk about our good old levy and how much money, how are we going to fund the levy? We know that we're going to get federal dollars, but if we need community dollars, which I'm sure we will, how are we going to do it? Are we going to do it with what kind of a tax? Will it be a property tax? There's all kinds of options that are being talked about. And I think the people that are involved in that committee are really trying to figure out which is the best one that is not going to nickel and dime everybody to death. So the group continues to meet monthly. There's another meeting, I think, in a couple of weeks. If you have any concerns or other things that you'd like to talk to me about, please don't hesitate to contact me. And then all of us went to, or many of us went to the Fatima's Fine Jewelry. They had their open house, their grand opening, another new business. It's wonderful to have that happening here. And as everyone has said, we just acknowledged our new police chief, David Honda. I think he's going to be a strong addition to our community. Congratulations to him. He had his family here from Idaho. It was really nice. So thank you to the community that came to support him, along with all of the officers from various agencies. That concludes my remarks.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Just two very brief announcements, keeping in line with the announcement that was just made on Earth Day. The County of Santa Cruz is also putting together a drought-tolerant turf replacement demonstration project at the Watsonville Health Center, and is inviting the community on Monday, April 18th, beginning at 1 p.m. Mayor Hernandez and myself will be at the event, speaking on the importance of continuing to conserve water as a precious resource. This project's expected to save us 350 gallons of water annually from the Pajaro Valley Basin. So it'll be a good opportunity to catch up with different landscapers in the area that can provide assistance to individual homeowners about how to do the same or similar kinds of projects in their home. And it's also going to be a partnership with the California Conservation Corps that will be providing additional assistance about maintenance and other drought tolerant efforts that you can do, other water conservation efforts that you can implement in your home. Also, I wanted to thank Interim Chief McCartney. He's done an amazing job filling in the ranks here with our law enforcement, being a very stable force for us as we move through and transition to Chief Honda. So I just want to thank you for all of your work and all of your effort. And thank you in particular for helping us to organize this upcoming meeting with Watsonville High School and our neighborhood services regarding the street closure hours on Lincoln Street in front of Watsonville High School. And I know that a lot of the details, we finally narrowed down the time and date. And so we do invite any folks interested in providing input regarding the Lincoln Street closure to join us on Wednesday, April 20th at Watsonville High School beginning at 6:30. And it'll just be important to get your input and be sure we understand what any potential impacts might be in the surrounding neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. First of all, my condolences goes out to Jimmy as well. You know, it's same situation happened to me in December, and it's always difficult to continue right after something like that happens to you. I was fortunate enough that it was December and we had the break in between, but I probably wouldn't have gone to council meetings and participated in many things. But again, you know, condolences to you and your family. I also attended many of the things that people had mentioned. You know, I just want to thank the Meals on Wheels and the Senior Center for allowing me to participate in their event, feeding the seniors there at the center. I want to thank Morgan Wines and the Chamber of Commerce for hosting the Pair with the Mayor wine event. The proceeds are going to go, we're organizing with the Chamber the first Watsonville Food and Wine Festival, which is going to be a big event for the end of the year. And I also had a chance to check in with the renovation of the Fox Theater, and I want to, put out a thank you to Barry Swenson, which is doing a lot of the renovation work pro bono. It's a huge task, a huge project, and I'm glad that people in the community are coming together for this project. I also attended the Cesar Chavez Awards, and I want to congratulate all the recipients of the awards. And I want to congratulate Keith Boyle on his retirement celebration. Great stint here with the city. Congratulations to Fatima's Jewelry's grand opening, another new great business in town. I had the chance to attend the Watsonville Mayor's Youth Violence Prevention Initiative. They had their first youth engagement meeting, and we had participants from all the schools, from SEBA to PV High to Watsonville High, and some of the continuation schools as well. We had the opportunity, I want to thank also Sam Farr for the opportunity to host the Legislative Open House here in Watsonville, along with Bill Monning and Luis Alejo. We're really fortunate to have access to our local legislators, so I want to thank them as well. And I had the opportunity to attend the Queen's Shoes and More re-grand opening. It was also their 9th anniversary. This is the first store from the Crossroads Shopping Center that has opened their new store already, and I hope, I cross my fingers that we have more of them really soon as well. I also had the chance to march with the Walk to Stop the Violence, Stop the Silence here in the youth center. It kind of rained on us a little bit, but it was okay. We continued. Events like that are really important to the community. I think it sparks a conversation about things that people don't want to talk about. So it's important that we continue those type of events. And I also got the chance to do a Second Harvest tour of their new facilities that they have, and some of the new refrigerators and You know, they're doing a really great job here in the community with folks. And lastly, I wanted to thank Public Works for doing such a great job on making sure that they put the dog waste receptacles on the levee on both District 7 and District 1 as well. And also they put 13 of them on Ohlone Parkway on both sides, of course, District 4 and District 1. I know I had a lot of comments and complaints about either we need dog bag receptacles on the road or people leave their dog poo on the sidewalk. So we made sure that we had some dog waste receptacles. Thank you to Public Works and Steve Palmisano for the work. And lastly, of course, they've already been mentioned, but make sure you attend the Wheels at Watsonville at the airport on Saturday, April 23rd from 10 to 5. There's also a dyno pull. So if you guys know what that is, it's to check how much horsepower your car has at the wheels. So bring your hot rod, or I know you guys got some nice cars there. And also Earth Day, Day of the Child, that's at Ramsey Park. Make sure you attend. 1 hour after this starts at 1 o'clock, there's also a game between the Aztecas soccer team and I think the San Jose Police Department. Is our new police chief still here? It'll be his old police department over there. So that should be interesting as well. It'll be happening at the same time. That concludes my remarks. If we can now begin with council with item B on report out of closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The council received a report from staff during closed session but took no final action this evening.
Next, we have item 7, consent agenda. All items appearing on the consent agenda are recommended actions, which are considered to be routine and will be acted upon in one consensus motion. Any items removed will be considered immediately after the consensus motion.
Mayor, I'd like to remove one. I'd like to remove 7H.
7H, you mean? Oh, yeah, 7H.
Mayor, it doesn't necessarily need to be pulled off, but I'd like further discussion on item C. I know the notes came in, but I haven't had a chance to read through the notes, and I would like to have more information made public on that, please.
On which one? What?
Item C.
C? Can we just pull it?
That's fine.
Okay. So C and H have been moved, and any public input on any of the items on the consent agenda? See none. Any motions?
Move approval.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second.
Ulysses?
Yes.
Cervantes? Yes. Kaufman Gomez?
Yes.
Dutra?
Yes.
Garcia?
Yes.
Hurst?
Yes.
Hernandez?
Yes. So we'll go in their alphabetical order. Item C, Councilmember.
Yes. If Parks, if you would please indulge us, I know that you gave me the notes, but I haven't had a chance to read through the notes. There were several questions I had because this is a project that's returned for additional funding. So if you can give us a few moments of time on that discussion, I would appreciate it.
Good evening, Mayor Hernandez, City Council members and members of the public. Ana Espinosa, Director for the City of Watsonville Parks and Community Services Department. Also joining me is Robert Berry, who's also a project manager from Public Works, who is assisting us with this project. Councilmember Trina Kaufman Gomez, what staff is recommending today for City Council approval is that you approve our ability to issue change order 3, which in essence is an add alternate 1 to a bid that council had approved a year ago to Eco Energy Solutions, Inc., which is also known as DBA High Volt, for replacing lighting at the softball field at Ramsey Park. In 2015, the City Council approved our ability to replace 4 of the lights. There's 6 that exist out there. And the contract at that time was for approximately $194,000, which included contingency of 10%. And the reason why we only proposed to have 4 of the 6 lights replaced was because we did not have sufficient park development funds at that time. And the bid packet that was issued at the time did include an ad alternate one, which is to potentially allow us to complete that work by replacing the last 2 lights. And so, taking advantage of that competitive bid process, we had it as an ad alternate. So all bidders were asked to indicate what their bid would be for that, so that in the future, if we were able to do it, we would know what those costs would be. So as I mentioned, change order 3 is basically our desire to continue to work with existing contractor to complete that work. And in order to do that, we are asking the council to allocate an additional $81,000 for this next phase of the project, as we do have the park development funds that have come in to support that. So that, in essence, gives you a summary of the project at hand. I did want to mention, because I did not mention it earlier, that the amount of the change order is for $66,320. And we're also requesting for additional funding as a contingency budget for it.
So in a nutshell, we've taken a $194,000 initial project, and it's now over $250,000, which essentially is about $50,000 a light pole that's going to be used for the capital improvements for Ramsey Park.
The project would be approximately, yes, $250,000.
And how much over was it from the bid by the time the picture was done? Because the variance was exceeded what council approved.
The contingency amount that we allocated for the project was $17,000, and the project came over about $21,000. So we were actually just under $4,000 over the budget to complete the project to install 4 lights. So change order 3 is requesting to finish the project, and that's the highest cost, and we're bringing that back to you because it is a 30% increase to the original bid, which requires council approval. Anything below 25% in terms of change orders that are necessary to complete a project safely and effectively, that is determined at an administrative level with the project.
So even though council approves it with a 10% variance, you have the authority to go beyond council's approval up to 25%, and then we revisit? So
anything above that would come back to council, that's correct. And that's a typical process, standard process for these types of construction projects.
The concern I have with the bid is, by the time it was said and done, was it really the best and most cost-effective bid that we would have had with the project to completion? And I thought that when it did come a year ago, it was to complete the project instead of 2/3 of the project. I wasn't aware that that was a 2/3 project we approved last year.
What we put forth was just the 4 lights because that's all we could do at the time. And so the contractor has completed that work, so they did complete 100% of the project. And in terms of whether it was cost effective, it is, because if you look at the bid packet that Eco Energy Solutions submitted, which was for the work of the 4 lights, it was $176,855,000. The ad alternate, which is to implement the last 2 lights, was $88,427. And to date, so combined, that would cost $265,282. That would be looking at their entire bid package. And And the actual cost today, if you approve this, is with the change order 1 and 2 and change order 3, which allows us to complete the installation of the last 2 lights, they actually come under budget at $264,551. And that includes change orders that were necessary for the first installation of the 4 lights.
Thank you. I know I probably have some other questions in here, and I'll read through the notes of the questions that I sent you earlier. I don't want to take too much more of council's time.
Oh, I actually, if you don't mind, Mr. Berry just reminded me, which is in the staff report, that the contractor is giving us a 25% discount to the rate that he had originally bid for the ad alternate for the last 2 lights, which is, again, what he originally bid was $88,000, and it would cost us $66,000.
So, is there any other questions?
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Bilicich?
You know, in looking at the bids, I see that the alternate for Tennyson is less than the 66. It's 63. I mean, is there a reason why? The other one was 88. I understand they negotiated a 25% discount, but even with the discount, Tennyson is still cheaper or less expensive.
For the ad alternate, that would be correct, but overall, in terms of the original bid, they were higher. And because we have worked with the current contractor and they've done a very good job, we felt that it would be effective and optimal to have them complete the work. Since the contract and bid was awarded and they have everything in place to do so in terms of their required documentation, bonds, et cetera.
The concern I have is I think it's great that we have a 25% discount, but again, it was negotiated, so to speak, but the other people didn't really have an opportunity to negotiate prices. Do you know what I mean?
They all had an opportunity to put in their costs for the ad alternate 1. So in essence, they did. They all were given that opportunity. That was part of the bid request.
Well, I mean, if they did that, then Tennyson was less.
And that's, again, it is less, but it's an ad alternate. And so we're fortunate that we selected the lowest bidder who was qualified to do the project, came in at a low amount, and overall, the combined was a really good price for the city.
So really, you didn't go back and look at the bids, did you?
We did not.
Because you already had the contractor.
We did not go out, if you're asking.
For the add-on,
I'm trying to understand your question. We did not choose to go out to separately bid the last remaining lights because we did not feel that that would be effective. It would be more costly and take a longer amount of time to complete the project.
Okay.
Councilmember Hurst?
I'll move Resolution C. That's the contract change order number 3 with Eco Energy Solutions Incorporated. That's 7C.
We'll do that, but let's see if there's a public comment. Seeing none? Seeing none, can you go back to your motion?
Yes, speaking to the motion, I'll move Resolution C, 7C, the change order. You know, baseball season is going to start up pretty soon, and we need to move forward. We could second guess bidders all night, and there's always some change up on almost every project, and so we already got the contractor in place. Staff seems to be happy with it. Let's move forward.
We got a motion. We got a second. Any discussion on the motion?
The only thing I'd like to say is that, again, if we're looking always at the least bid, we didn't seem to in this case because we already had a contractor in place.
Councilmember Tina Kaufman-Gomez.
My other comment too is we've got local, and the local revenue stays local to be able to regenerate back into our economy because we have an economic issue that's here already. And I really want to make sure that when we're addressing these bids that we're given that opportunity. Granted, the vendor that we had here that was most expensive was local, but it probably could have been evaluated or somewhat taken into consideration, because then that's $250,000 of a project that could have stayed here and given to local businesses to regenerate back into this economy, rather than a vendor that comes in from out of the area that may stay with some hotel accommodations while the construction work is being done. It's just my take on it. Thank you.
Madam Secretary?
Yelises?
Yes.
Cervantes Alejo? Kaufman Gomez?
No.
Dutra?
Yes.
Garcia? Yes. Hurst?
Yes.
Fernandez?
Yes. Motion passes. Next, we have item H, which is now 8B. Sorry, this is... Yeah. Final ordinance adopting improving rezoning of assessor's parcel number. Councilmember Garcia?
Actually, I have a couple of questions, but I pulled it off because I understand there's a community member that wants to address us, and so want to listen to him first, and then I will ask my questions.
If there's no one on council, we will put it up to public comment. Nobody on council? Any public comment on item H? 8B.
Yes, I have a comment, but first I'd like to find out if the council members received my written communication on this subject. Hopefully,
An
I've
email,
got hard
yes.
copies if no one saw it. Everybody seen it?
Yep.
Okay. Hard copies available if anybody needs them. So my name is John Menke. I have property on 9th Street, which is the area that'll be impacted by the development of the current Motel 9 at the intersection of Freedom and Main. I've got concerns because the planning department documents that I've looked at contain statements that to me are clearly erroneous, and I brought those to the attention of the planning commission, planning department, and have not received any feedback that alleviates my concerns. I'm going to talk about just one of those issues. Within the California Environmental Quality Act, within CEQA, you make design review findings and provide supporting evidence. So here's one design review finding from this development. The proposed development is compatible with and preserves the character and integrity of the adjacent development and neighborhoods. Includes improvements or modifications to mitigate development-related adverse impacts such as traffic, noise, visual nuisances, and other similar effects. So that's what they're finding. What is the evidence they give? Well, the evidence that there won't be any problems with noise and odors and visual problems is the site's located along Western Drive, which serves several apartment complexes and single-family homes. The hotel will complement the area by providing short-term accommodations. Totally unrelated to the issue in the design findings. And our neighborhood's got 5 hotels within a half mile. We don't need another hotel other than the ones we got. The site has been designed in an aesthetically pleasing manner with facade articulation and various interest points from the street and highway. The design will include landscaping and vegetation. Now, how does that address noise and visual constraints? Here's the visual problem that I see. This proposed motel will have walls that at the minimum, at the least, are 44 feet tall. And I got thinking, just how tall is a 44-foot wall? Well, I found out the Berlin Wall was between 11 and 14 feet tall. The Great Wall of China is between 18 and 26 feet tall. Walls of Folsom Prison and San Quentin Prison, about 20 feet tall. Leavenworth Federal Penitentiary does have walls 40 feet tall, but this motel will have walls 40 feet tall, 44 feet tall at a minimum. Adjacent to this hotel is a existing apartment complex, 2 stories with windows that face the motel. These people living in there are going to have this wall 44 feet tall erected in front of their windows, about 20 feet from those windows. They're not going to have daylight. They'll have lights on all during the day. So how can that adverse effect not be addressed? Let's see how they say. Does the project have environmental effects which will cause substantial adverse effects on human beings? Their finding is no. Well, I think it does. I'm just saying, don't approve this now. Postpone it for another month. It's going to be a 50-year project. It's going to be there for a long time. One more month, so I can talk to the planning department. They can talk to the neighborhood. We can try to resolve these issues that they've ignored. And I did attach to the document a picture of a design with a tower and some interesting effects to increase the visual effect. Folsom Prison and San Quentin Prison. And that's the way we're looking at this development. It's putting us in a prison. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll bring it back to council. Keep in mind, council, this second hearing is also to look at our decision, not the individual project findings. Councilmember Dutra?
I have a quick question, sir. Do you live in Watsonville?
I spend about half my time in Watsonville. I own property on 9th Street. I also own property in Sacramento. My transition from Sacramento to Watsonville, I haven't quite arrived full-time yet, but I'm here about half the time. The property I've owned now for 7 years.
So you live half the time on 9th Street?
Half the time in Sacramento, right.
Okay.
So I've got two neighborhoods. I like the one here, I like the one there. I have a hard time deciding.
Right. I just want to clarify with you. You said we didn't need any more hotels, and those of us that live in Watsonville know we are in very much need of hotels. So, we are a community that we have businesses where consultants come in all the time. We have events where we have to put people up all the time, and we just don't have that sort of housing for people coming into Watsonville. So it is a need here in Watsonville. So I just want to make sure. I didn't know if you lived here or not, because if you did, you'd understand we do have the need of it.
When I was working on my house, I couldn't use the house. It was basically condemned when I bought it. So I stayed at Motel 9. I stayed there many a night. I'm aware of overnight accommodations here. I've been to visit the motels that are in town, and I'm not arguing we don't need another one. We just don't need one that big at that location. Make it a 2-story. The neighborhood's fine with that, just not a 4-story.
Well, another fact about Watsonville too is that we're landlocked. And so we can't grow out anymore. The only place we can grow is grow up, and that's just the reality of where we are in today's society for Watsonville.
If you approach Watsonville on Highway 1 from the north, Airport Boulevard has undeveloped property at that location. It's not probably in the city limits, but that would be a great place for the entrance to Watsonville to have a nice motel up at Airport.
Right. We're also restricted by the airport as well. So you have to, maybe you should have a conversation with the development department to really kind of learn what we can and cannot do here in the city of Watsonville.
And that's exactly what I'm asking for. Let's get some dialogue going, because to date, we've written in our recommendations, we've signed petitions. There hasn't been any dialogue back to us from the planning department. I want to see some dialogue.
Right,
Okay.
but at the same time, I think that, just my last comment, sorry, I know I shouldn't be interacting with, but,
Right.
just the...
Our discussion.
Yeah, I know, it's our discussion. I guess my comment will be then, it'll be a general comment, is for the project in general, it's definitely needed in the community, because we need the housing. We need to start rebuilding downtown, which has been left vacant for a long time, and we need to start somewhere. And downtown is a place that this hotel has decided to go, and this is something that the council decided that they agreed with. And like I said, the last meeting is we need to move away from 1960 and into 2016. And in 2016, this is what we have to do. We have to go up, and that's what we have to do.
Well, there's good news. There are two new
Again,
multi-story
okay,
developments
thank you.
proposed to the south of town.
Thank you. Again, second readings of ordinances are for the project findings, they're for our decision, sorry, not to discuss the project findings. Anybody else? Councilmember Hurst?
Yes, I'd like to move the item. I believe you've renamed this to 8B. It's the former 7H, final ordinance adopting rezoning of assessor's parcel number 016153-03, located at number 1 Western Drive.
We have a motion, and we have a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Bielisich?
Yes.
Cervantes Alejo? Yes. Kaufman Gomez?
Yes.
Dutra?
Yes.
Garcia?
No.
Hurst?
Yes.
Yes. Motion passes. All consent agenda items. Next, we have reports and presentations. Item 9, presentation of the Metro State of the Union by Santa Cruz Metropolitan Transit District, CEO Alex Clifford. This is a no action required item.
Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you for the opportunity to be here today to present you my annual State of Metro. I think I got agenda as the State of Union, but I usually call it State of Metro. I'm here today with Barrow Emerson, my planning and development manager, and he and I will sort of tag team today. I'll give you the State of Metro. He'll talk a little bit about our current comprehensive operational analysis that's underway. You've probably read a little about that in the paper. And then we'll both be available for any kind of questions that you might have. I do want to point out at the onset that Norm Hagan was feeling ill and needed to leave. He really wanted to be here to present his thoughts about some of the service changes, and I believe he might have handed out something for you to look at. Either that or it's on the back table, but it goes into detail about his thoughts about a couple of the changes. So in the way of State of Metro, let me just tell you a little bit about us and then help you understand how we're funded. We are a $50 million annual operating budget. We employ 325 people, team members. We own 111 fixed route buses and 41 paratransit vehicles. We service a population of about 250,000, providing about 5.7 million annual trips. About 46% of our annual ridership are UCSC students and faculty. And in that relationship, each student receives an annual pass. They pay for that through their fees, and that brings to Metro about $3.5 million annually as a result of that relationship. And then, interestingly enough, one of our surveys recently showed that about 39% of our customers use the service to get to and from work. So in the way of funding, a lot of people don't know this, but our passenger fares only cover about 20% of what it takes to operate the system. So the fares that people put in the fare box or pay us to obtain the 31-day pass, for example, all of that recovers about 20% of what it costs to run the entire operations. We are blessed in this county to have a voter-approved half-cent sales tax, and that provides about 39% of our operating. So about $20 million a year flow to our operating fund, that $50 million a year it takes to operate the business, through that half-cent sales tax, thanks to the generosity of the voters of this county. State funding sources provide about 18% of what we need to run the business, and federal operating assistance about 13%. Now the next number is where our problem arises. Our reserves have been funding about 10% of what it costs to run the business. And reserves are not permanent, they're one-time money, and they eventually run out. Santa Cruz Metro is a major economic and mobility contributor to the region. Metro's budget supports the economy. Labor, that is wages and benefits, represent about 82% of our operating costs, which you would expect. We're in the business of providing a service, and that service requires personnel to provide those services primarily through our bus operations. Now, another interesting stat, about 88% of our employees reside in Santa Cruz County. So the local multiplier effect of those labor dollars to the region is high, as our employees' income is reinvested locally in housing, goods, and services. So just a little bit about our financial overview. The FY 2017 budget, that's what we would call our next year's budget, effective July 1 of this year, will require about $6.5 million to balance the budget. That's historically been taken care of with one-time money reserves, and those reserves, as you would expect, have run out. In addition to that, about $4.2 million annually continue to subsidize the operating fund in the way of dollars that are capital eligible, that is, dollars that we historically would use for capital projects. And I'll cover a little about that in a second. But clearly, what I've described to you is a funding plan, a fiscal plan that is unsustainable. So in addition to our structural deficit that we've discussed, we have gone through an exercise of identifying our capital needs over the next 10 years. Now, those capital needs are primarily driven by a need to replace our buses and our paratransit vehicles. Now, a bus today runs anywhere from about $600,000 to $800,000 a bus, depending on the technology that we use. Our average age of fleet today is about 12 years. That is not a good number. Buses reach obsolescence at about 12 years. We stretch them out beyond that. Our average age is 12 years. If we're in a state of good repair, our average age of our fleet is about 6.5 years, 6.5 years. And that's important because that has a lot to do with the costs of maintaining our fleet, and it has a lot to do with the dependability of our fleet. As our fleet gets older, it becomes less dependable, and our buses will tend to break down. So that $200 million unfunded capital need over the next 10 years translates into a need of about $20 million a year to keep our business in what you call a state of good repair. So the unfunded capital needs list emphasizes the importance of keeping capital eligible resources in the capital fund. Now, there's been some talk about an RTC potential half-cent sales tax initiative this November 2016. If that occurs under the current proposals, that could generate about $2.2 million a year to Metro, and we have proposed and our board has accepted that those dollars would be dedicated to the paratransit side of the business, and that for the upcoming service changes that Barrow is going to talk about in a minute, the board has committed through this particular major service change to leave our paratransit whole. That is, to not do any further cuts as we did last year to our paratransit, in hopes that that half-cent sales tax measure will make it to the ballot and pass. If it does not, then sometime next year the board might have to come back and revisit that particular part. So in an effort to resolve the structural deficit, we're currently going through what we call a comprehensive operational analysis, what we term a COA. And that has been an ongoing process to identify how we can trim about $6.5 million in service from our operation. And we just released the first very preliminary set of recommendations, which are now being vetted through the public process. Barrow will talk a little bit about that public process. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Barrow Emerson. He'll talk about the process and some of the changes, and then we will both be available to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Alex. Mayor, board members, staff, and public guests. Again, my name is Barrow Emerson. I'm the planning manager at Santa Cruz Metro, and I'll try to keep it short and direct here because Alex touched on a lot of the issues. But I'm here to talk a bit about the process of how we're going about attempting to reduce our operating costs by $6.5 million. To do so means we need to reduce our operations by approximately 25%. And in our business, we talk about hours of operations. Santa Cruz Metro now runs 225,000 hours of service a year. We need to reduce that by 60,000 hours for next year. There's three ways we do this. We can and the goal here is to keep as much service on the street as possible and provide as good a public transit network as possible for the public. The first and least painful thing we can do is reduce frequency. Today, someone has a bus every 30 minutes. It may need to be a bus every 60 minutes. Span of service. Today, you may have a bus from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Maybe it needs to be 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. We're looking at all variations on that, maybe losing some frequency and then having late or early sweepers. The other thing we try to do is maintain service for all days of the week. It's really important in Santa Cruz County. A lot of our employment is in retail, and it's not a Monday to Friday 9 to 5. We understand and respect that and are doing everything we can do to balance that. The The last and most painful thing is when we have to eliminate a route completely. That is only proposed where it is a very poor ridership route, very small number of people per hour. In the few cases where we've done that, we've tried to modify other routes to move a few blocks over to try to cover an area, and we're still working on stuff like that. We are fully aware that these levels of reduction are among the most significant you'll ever see for a public transit agency, and they're going to affect this particular community in a number of ways. UCSC and Cabrillo students getting to school, Highway 17 express service over the hill to jobs, community schools, I'm talking junior high schools and high schools, senior and disabled residents, and possibly most importantly is employees trying to get to jobs. That's why this span of service restriction, it could be particularly painful. The state of the process, as Alex referred to just a week or two ago, March 25th, our board was provided with an initial proposal on how to achieve this reduction. And there's a lot of stuff in there that is extremely painful to lots of different groups. Prior to that meeting and ongoing is we're doing extensive community outreach in all sorts of venues through all sorts of mediums. And we're responding, we're getting information out there, and I won't go into great detail there. On April 22nd, there will be a refined proposal taken to the board with some of the issues that have been raised by board members and the public address, and I'll speak to a couple of those in particular in Watsonville that we are continuing to work on. At that April 22nd meeting, there will be a formal 30-day public hearing period established, and we will go around the county holding 9 separate formal public meetings where there will be court reporters and translators taking formal testimony. And we're going out to all the places affected. We're not just making people come to downtown Watsonville and Santa Cruz, so we're going out to where it's happening. A month later, that 30 days will end with a 2-day public hearing that will start here on Thursday night, May 26th, and it will conclude the next morning at Santa Cruz City Hall on May 27th. That will be the conclusion of the formal public hearing period. 1 month later, on June 24th, the board will be asked to adopt a level of service reduction. This happens in conjunction with the district's annual budget. As you can imagine, in June you have to adopt a July budget that is balanced. That's why this decision has to happen then. Major issues. UCSC, just like everybody across the community, we can't just cut the poorest performing routes. It's not the thing we need to do for our community, and we are restricted from law by doing so. We have to spread the pain among all the parts of the community. So in that sense, UCSC, who is half our ridership, they're taking significant cuts, and they're scrambling to come up with funding to buy some of those services back. It's a very difficult thing for them, like all public agencies. And while I'm on that, I do want to mention, especially noting Jimmy Dutra's help, in 2 weeks, Cabrillo Junior College will have a student ballot measure to decide whether they will assess their students to allow them to put money back into the bus system. So that's a very important feature, and we've appreciated Jimmy's help. In terms of the Watsonville area, because I'm sure you've heard a few of these things, there were 2 or 3 specific issues that were addressed by the public and the board members on March 25th, and our project team has been back working on those. And just to give you an early thought, in our initial proposal, service was removed from Clifford Ave. We're looking at a way to bring the Route 71 back on every other trip on Clifford Ave, and we should have some resolution of the costing of that in the next few days. And I want to speak for Norm here, who, as you heard, had to leave early, but he had a very specific issue about the lack of service on the weekend on a couple of routes. And he and others have offered us a strategy to reduce some of the frequency on weekdays to get some service on the weekends. And if that can be a neutral cost situation, I think we are on a path to seeing if we can do that. Lastly, there is a lot of concern by people who live in South County and either work or go to school at UC Santa Cruz. We have an express service early in the morning that is proposed for elimination. We've heard that issue. We're working on trying to trade off, take an hour here, put back an hour here. So that's an important thing to us, and we realize the importance to that for employment. So I hope to have some better news on that in the near future. In closing, I want to remind the council and to share with your constituents that Metro is still taking informal public comment leading up to the formal period, and will be holding a series of formal public workshops. You all were handed a packet, or is on your desk, made up of 4 items. Number 1 are 2 business cards on the top, one in Spanish and one in English. They're not my cards. They're merely the card with the address of the project website where someone who is interested can get into extensive detail on the background analysis and the actual route-by-route proposals for service changes and maps that accompany them. So that's what the 2 business cards are. The other piece of paper is this list of 9 public meetings that will be held consecutive for over 2 weeks in May, and I'd like to point out there'll be 2 different meetings in Watsonville on the 5th and the 9th. And then the last piece of that package was a 5 or 6 page item describing our structural deficit with a group of frequently asked questions on the back. So I hope that information is helpful, and I hope that website information gets out to constituents so they can educate themselves a bit more on the facts and then how to participate and provide input, because on that webpage, as usual, there's a place to click with comments that comes directly to me and we deal with those questions. So, I think that's enough for now, and I think we are happy to take questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. If we can now have any, Councilmember Garcia?
Yes, I have 2 questions with the handout that we had. My first question, and this is for clarification, my first question has to do on page 2 where it says, what has Santa Cruz Metro done recently to reduce expenses to mitigate the structural deficit? And your 4th bullet down, it says align the budget, fiscal year budget, 16 budget to the fiscal year 14 budget, et cetera, et cetera. My question is, in terms of, it talks about uncontrollable increases in labor and fringe. Does that mean that there was no compromise with labor in terms of raises or furloughs?
Well, I think that's a really important point, and I'm glad you raised that. Our unions stepped up about a year ago and said, look, we just got this 2% increase. I believe that was June of 2015. And they said, look, we understand the problems Metro's going through, and we'd like to negotiate an extension to the contract and give that back and postpone it out to 2018. So the UTU stepped up and did that first. Management then followed, and then our SEIU followed after that. So all employees in Metro have given up that 2% in order to help out with this dilemma that we're facing. We've started, since the moment I arrived on this property 2 years ago, we started trying to find solutions to this problem, trying to put in place some short-term things that we could while we worked on the larger being a service change of this magnitude. You just don't want to rush to that. You want to really think it through, be very surgical about it, and structure a process that involves heavy public input.
Okay, my second question has to do with, on page 9, it says, why did Metro just spend millions of dollars on the new operation facility on River Street when they knew that they had a structural deficit? And about halfway down the paragraph, it says, Metro is not proposing to fund any future capital projects. However, I don't remember when, but within the last, I would say, 6 months, we had somebody from Metro come and give us a presentation on the redesigning of the downtown Watsonville.
Sure.
So is that going to happen or not?
Yeah, and there's a typo there if it says we wouldn't be proposing any future capital projects. What we would do is look for capital resources that are dedicated and only can be used for capital. So there are kind of 2 pots of money that often fund transit agencies or subsidize transit agencies. There's dollars that flow to us that are very flexible. They can be used for operations or capital, and right now we're channeling all of those sort of flexible dollars into operations. Matter of fact, right now we have no other flexible dollars we could put in operations. There are other dollars that we go after, grants that we go after from the state and the federal government, that can only be used for capital. even if we would like, we couldn't apply, we couldn't win the grant unless we proposed good capital projects. Those are the kinds of grants that we'll aggressively go after as we try to fund our bus capital needs, for example. But whenever you go after those grants, you have to have a local match. And that local match needs to come out of those dollars I talked about, these sort of state and federal flexible dollars, in order to go after the grants. So if you want a $10 million grant to replace your buses, then you're going to have a 20% local match. So it's a delicate balance. Now, the Watsonville project that you referenced, yes, that's an exciting project. We're looking forward to continuing to move that forward. But eventually, we'll have to get it shovel ready, what you call shovel ready, ready to go after grants. And then we'll reach out far and wide for what would be called dedicated capital dollars from the state, federal, or both.
Thank you.
Councilmember Bilicich.
No, I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly how long ago it was, but a couple of years, maybe, I don't know, 3 years ago. And Metro came right here and said, we're going to have to cut some services. And there was a huge reserve, something like, I want to say $47 million. There was a lot of money in this reserve, and they were saying, we have to cut services. We have to cut services. And I think, Eduardo, I think you were on the council then, and we talked about, well, why are you doing this with all of these reserves? You had a lot of money. My question is, what happened to the money?
Great question. Thank you for the opportunity. So let me explain it like this, and all of this predates me, so this is me trying to put together the history of it. But we all know what happened in sort of the Great Recession following 2008. I think you felt it here at the city. You struggled with some very difficult decisions. Our agency had a very large pot of reserves that you referenced in 2008. And while many transit properties across the nation were reacting to the Great Recession by immediately going in and renegotiating labor contracts, doing furloughs, and postponing investment and cutting service and laying off people right in that 2009-2010 region, our board was committed to trying to keep as much of the service on the street as they possibly could. And so to do that, they started drawing down on those reserves which historically would be used for capital projects. They were very committed, as I understand it, to keeping the service on the street. And I think we all, in that 2008-2009 timeframe, hoped that the economy, the recession would be short-lived and the economy would recover and recover in a robust way. But as we all know, it did not. It recovered very slowly, and it's been recovering, but we have not recouped all of those dollars. So to go to your question, what has happened is, as a result of the Great Recession, we had to use about $26 million in reserves over those years in order to get through those times and keep the service on the street. There was a point in about 2010, I believe it was, that this agency felt a need to reduce service, but then they put that service back in about a year later and continued to draw down on reserves. And as I think you're acknowledging, reserves are one-time money. They run out. Unless they get replenished, they simply run out. We're at that point. We're at that fiscal cliff, and we must address it.
So what is your reserves? How much do you have in reserves now?
Right now, we've committed almost our last amount of reserves to the current year, which is about $5 million. If we underrun this budget, we may just have enough money in reserves to have what we call a pot for sustainability. And what that means is that you should have reserves to get you through some number of months in the case of a disruption of the flows of dollars that sustain the agency. Interestingly enough, our agency only has a 2-month policy. So if I have a disruption in the flow of dollars from the federal government, which has happened before, I can only sustain 2 months when that pot is full, and that pot is not full today.
So from 47, you went down to 5 million?
And we'll be at 0 here shortly. Yes.
Thank you.
Councilmember Trina Kaufman-Gomez.
Thank you. This is a participation of everybody. What have your employees, the bus drivers and the staff, not executive level, what kind of comments have they made in terms of ideas that they would have maybe thinking outside of the box on some of these reductions. I know that the volunteer of their 2% is probably one idea that they had come up with, but what other ideas have you seen from the staff themselves?
Sure. We started, over a year ago, we started a process of encouraging our employees to provide us ideas. Those who are closest to the inefficiencies we think are in a best position to tell us what we can do better. And so what that resulted in is a number of changes that we made in last year's budget. Keep in mind, we started this over a year ago. We were able to reduce, not counting the 2% that the unions and the managers gave back, we were able to reduce over $1 million in expenses, in part from those types of suggestions that have come
So
through.
about 20% of what you're actually looking at doing on the cut now was discovered by staff assistants on ideas and suggestions.
And without that, we'd be sitting on a need of about $7.5 million today.
What method of electronic social media comments are you using, taking in methods of communication for the ridership, things like that? Because a lot of times, if you open up the community room here and say, hey, we're Metro, come see us, you don't necessarily are hitting the mark of the people you really need to be talking to and targeting. What other forms of communication are you getting feedback from other than just those type of workshops?
Sure. We do have a Facebook site, but right now we're trying to get everyone focused on the SC Metro Forward, www.scmetroforward.com, because that is the location where they can go. They can look at any of this information. We're trying to populate it with as much as we can, both in English and Spanish. They can also provide us their comments, and they have been providing us abundantly their comments, and they can also sign up to receive regular updates. And so that's where we're trying to drive everybody to right now. We have had enormous success. We couldn't afford to buy the media coverage we've had, both on campus at UCSC. The Pajaronian and the Sentinel have given us enormous, well-balanced coverage, and they all have put out that SC Metro Forward website, and it's driving volume to that website.
Now, I think the initial notes were the ridership is only about 20% of the income or the revenue being generated off of this. What are you looking there in terms of, could their contribution be more than 20%? Has this been weighed in as a factor to see about getting the ridership to also pitch in?
Yeah, great important question. I would just preface it by saying that at about 20%, we are in the sort of upper quadrant of fare box recovery across the state. We're doing pretty well compared to a lot of other properties, particularly to our peers. Is there more opportunity in fare restructuring? Yes. I want to make clear that solving a structural deficit like this, and I think you kind of experienced this in the city too post-2008, is not any one concept, any one idea. It is many different concepts that have to be implemented over a prolonged period of time. So last year, we did some increases in the way of Highway 17. We increased the fares for our commuters. And we did some increases on our paratransit side of the business, which is one of the reasons why we're not proposing to do any more there. And next year, we will start evaluating the opportunities for some fare restructuring on the fixed route side. So it's multiple years. I think we would fail if we tried to do it all in 1 year. I don't think as a small agency we have that capacity.
So my next question comes to Watsonville. What we've got here is this percentage of a cut reduction pretty equitable across the county, or is there a disproportionate share of percentage of cuts that's affecting Watsonville over Santa Cruz? Where are we seeing this to make sure of the equilibrium of the reduction?
Absolutely. I definitely can understand the concern. I'd like Barrow to talk a little bit about the statistics.
Yeah, thanks for that. Two things. As I mentioned earlier, we have sort of two types of obligations to not disproportionately affect any part of the county. Number one, it's sort of our ethical and our community responsibility. But there's also federal law that says it's against the law to disproportionately affect minority and low-income areas. So in the plan that will, the draft plan will actually be out by next week. We do a census tract by census tract analysis and distance from our routes, how many people in various communities are how far away, and their levels of service. And so far, we think we've done a pretty equitable job. Now, that's not to say in every geographic sub-area you say one's 10%, one's 9%, 11%, but they're all in the same ballpark. And I will reemphasize that our most successful routes to UCSC and over the hill are getting the same general percentage of reductions.
Thank you.
Councilmember Hurst.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clifford, for being here tonight. I think there's a public that want to address you as well. You know, I don't know much about your operational details, even though, you know, through all my years on the council, I've never served on Metro, and I think I understand why. This is a tough deal. My experience mostly on buses is in South America and Asia, where they actually put rails on the outside of the bus so you can hang on and pack extra passengers on there, and a rack up on the roof where you could sit and not be under everybody else's armpit. What about smaller buses is what people ask me. We see these big buses roll down the street, and I know people get on and people get off, but people mention to me, well, why doesn't Metro just use smaller buses? And that would be a lot cheaper. Do you have a response to that question?
First response is, man, that is a really common question that comes up. And so we put it in on that document that we gave you under what we call the frequently asked questions. It is a very difficult and complex question to answer, but let me try to figure out how to say it in a little bit simpler way. First, we are investigating smaller vehicles to see if there is a way to integrate some of those into our fleet. Understand that whether you have a bus operator driving a small vehicle or driving a large vehicle, your cost is going to be relatively the same. So you're not contributing to the deficit problem with that particular equation. Now, where you might be able to find some savings is a smaller bus like that might run about $150,000 to buy. Although its life expectancy is probably 3 to 5 years at the most, you're going to replace it 2 to 3 times more frequent than you would the larger bus. But really, your most constraining factor is this. Bus service generally is adjusted to the peak hour. The peak hour is when we have to have the most number of buses out there on the road. And so that is when our buses are most impacted, particularly in the peak hour, in what we call the peak direction. So a small bus that only holds, say, 15 or 20 people isn't going to cover your peak hour. You might have to have 2 or 3 times that amount of small buses, 2 or 3 times that amount of operators. You're driving your cost up. So it's something that we have to think about as we look at how to integrate smaller vehicles into the fleet. The other thing that sometimes people will ask is, well, why don't you use your large bus in the peak, park it, and then put your small bus in for the off-peak? That's an interesting observation. It does require you to invest more on the capital side because you have a larger fleet. You have your big buses and your little buses. The other complication is that we do something that you call interlining. What that means is a bus may run on a particular line or route, say in the morning peak, and then we might move that bus over to run on another route. And so you have to be careful how you schedule that equipment to make sure that if we go with small buses and integrate them into our fleet, that we don't overload those buses as they move around through this interline process. So again, it's fairly complicated. I'm trying to create sort of a relatively simple answer to give you a visual, at least, on how complicated it is to try to integrate smaller equipment into our fleet.
Thanks for answering that commonly asked question, and now we got you on tape why everybody can have their answer.
There you go.
I got a couple other questions, though. What's going to be the impact on our friends in North Monterey County and Pajaro and Las Lomas? Do we have a projection on, you know, they're still part of our community even though they're not within the city limits. Many of them come here for services, sometimes shop.
To that detail, south out of Watsonville, our route, the 77, is currently proposed for elimination because MST, Monterey Salinas Transit, provides service in the same corridor, and we're working with them. So we feel like we're leaving a public transit service in that corridor for them.
Thank you. I'm sure they'll be captivated by that thought. Let me ask this question. Are there any facilities that could be sold or could generate other income?
Well, we just opened up our new operations facility, and that's been a long sought-after project going back many, many years. If you sold that, I can't imagine where we would put all of our buses and our operators. The two main larger transit centers we own, Pacific Station and Watsonville Transit Center. Great facilities, really good hubs for our operations to come in and for people to change buses and go back out. Hard to visualize trying to sell those and where you would put all of those bus operations. Pretty much the same thing with our Cavallaro and Scotts Valley. Other than that, we don't own a lot. Our paratransit folks operate out of leased facilities. When you talk about that, it's very expensive to lease, which burdens our operations fund. We would rather use capital dollars and build them sort of a new home and give some relief to the operating budget if we can find those capital dollars. So it's a long answer to say I can't readily identify facilities because we're not abundant in facilities.
So no surplus equipment or land that might not be utilized at this point that somebody else might like?
Nothing that comes to mind right now. And I would just, the only other point I would add to that is that could generate revenues if that opportunity were found, but those revenues would be very similar to reserve revenues. They wouldn't be a recurring revenue source. And our problem is that our recurring revenues don't meet our recurring expenses. So we need to, it is a structural problem. We have to find recurring revenues.
I understand that. Any structural administrative costs that might be reduced?
Sure. We're looking at that. We continue to look at that. We made a number of cuts last year. Ever since, I've been holding positions vacant that I could hold vacant that were not mission critical. So I have a number of vacant positions that I'll be bringing to this budget to unfund.
Well, I'm sure you're aware that your services are sometimes the last resort for folks that can't afford a Tesla or a car or don't want one. And so they really do rely upon Metro to get to school, get to work, go shopping. Maybe even senior citizens would like to go out in the evening but can't because there's no way to get home.
Yeah, this sure pains us. I got to tell you, Barrow, myself, I can assure you we got into this business to do good things for the public. We serve some of the poorest of the poor. We serve the transit dependent. We serve seniors and disabled. We didn't get into this business to take service away. This is a very difficult thing for us to go through. We would rather be in a position where we could be investing in the system and expanding service. On the bright side, if we can fix a structural problem, the economy recovers, sales tax flows a little bit better, state and federal governments step up and help us out a little bit more like they need to do. There may be some hope down the road if we fix our structural problem to be able to put some service back in. I want to be optimistic that that will occur.
Thank you. That concludes any questions that I have.
Councilmember Garcia, are you raising your hand? No. Okay. So, first I commend your public engagement and your community input plan. I appreciate that. It probably could have rolled out 2 or 3 weeks earlier, I think, though. One of my concerns that I have is that the routes being cut in South County go northbound to Aptos, to Capitola, to Santa Cruz. We have a lot of folks in Watsonville that rely on those routes for mostly work and school. Of course, Cabrillo, to go to Cabrillo. A lot of times they can't get all their classes for their AA here, and they have to take some courses over there. But a lot of times they have to go, young people go to the mall, to the boardwalk, to Santa Cruz for their jobs. A lot of folks in our community go to work at the hotels, the restaurant industry, dishwashers, food prep, cooks. A lot of the folks that A lot of the jobs that they have in Santa Cruz, the vitamin manufacturing in both Santa Cruz and Scotts Valley, a lot of people use the bus. And, it's a concern because our residents use those buses to go to work and to go to school, and it's something that's vital for both our city, but at the same time, it's also vital for the city of Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz needs the labor of Watsonville. And this isn't simply a Watsonville problem, it's also a Santa Cruz problem. They don't have their workers, it's an issue. They don't have no one to, do their beds at the hotels, no one to wash their dishes at the restaurants, no one to prep their foods, no one to make the food for the students at UC Santa Cruz. A lot of those workers are from Watsonville, and they take the bus. And so it's a concern for my constituents, and I think that, I do see the big structural deficit that you guys are facing, but at the same time, it is a concern to both our residents, but also to city of Santa Cruz. It should be a concern. You mentioned ideas, and we did go through issues in late 2007. One of the ideas was that, we went through a series of concessions that we had to do with both management and workers. Whether it's wages, whether it's furloughs, we just barely in December eliminated our furloughs, and the January 8th, we were finally off furloughs. That was from late 2007, November 2007, if I'm correct, up until January 8th. Would that resolve some issues? Would that keep as much of the same level of service that we have now? Would that resolve any of the issues if we worked with the employees, worked with the unions to work at some concessions and maybe furloughs? Would that resolve anything?
Well, again, our unions and management gave that concession, that 2%, which was pretty substantial. I think the answer is this. Certainly furloughs has been one of the things that I've been investigating. I've called the various cities in the county, done some exploration with my peer properties about how they've handled things. We're probably a bit late in the game for furloughs, to be honest with you. Now, we'll still investigate that and have some conversations with our union about that. But if you read about furloughs, furloughs are intended to be temporary. Now, if you implement furloughs, you generally think at some point you're going to have sort of a light at the end of the tunnel. You're going to be able to reinstate the hours and the days off. We don't have a light at the end of the tunnel. I can't bank on a sizable increase in sales tax revenues coming in. I can't bank on a substantial enough fare increase. It would have to be a huge fare increase in order to offset what we're doing. If you've been following what we went through over the last 3 or 4 years with trying to get the federal government to reauthorize transportation funding, there is no hope that there's going to be any help there. And even if it were going to come, it isn't going to come till FY21, because we're now in a 5-year bill that has just 2% incremental. So furloughs on a temporary basis, when you have a light at the end of the tunnel, makes sense. They help carry you through that particular sort of depression in your revenue flow till you can get to a point and get back to business. We would have been nice, probably the day I arrived on the property 2 years ago, that should have been something that I said, whoa, time out, let's implement some furloughs here until we get our act together. But now we're getting our act together. We're coming up with the more permanent structural solutions. And I think the contribution that furloughs would give to the overall program would be minimal and certainly couldn't be temporary.
So the funding that you guys get, that's like the sort of the iced tea type things they run every 5 years in the federal government.
Yeah, you remember ICE-T. ICE-T was one of the original federal transportation acts, and then it became other things after that. But yeah, federal government just has not stepped up. They still, even with this budget, have their own structural problem. They funded it for 5 years with a whole lot of one-time monies, which means before we even get to this bill, we're going to be going through what we went through for the last several years, trying to encourage them to wake up and find more permanent solutions. On the state level, you would think that there's opportunity to increase the gas or gas and diesel tax and allow some more dollars to flow to our agency through the what we call the STA program. The opportunity is there, but there's so much partisan politics occurring in Sacramento right now that you can't get an increase in gas tax, which would help us tremendously. And I really don't think, as low as gas prices are, the average consumer would feel, you know, the 2 or 3 or 5 pennies that they would pay at the gas pump that would so much help us be able to continue to maintain service on the street. We need to put a lot of pressure, sir, on our state and our federal folks to help us out. We need that kind of help.
So, you know, when issues like that come up, I would want for you guys to reach out to the city as well, and so we can partner up on these lobbying efforts, whether it's, you know, for the next transportation plan, or if it's possibly if they can do an emergency plan. You know, a lot of states, or our state in particular, is really pushing this climate action plan and, you know, wants more bus ridership as well. But it's becomes a kind of sort of an unfunded mandate when the federal government is cutting back. If we can partner up on any state issue, which would be, you know, or congressional issue, we would be more than happy to partner up on those type of issues so we can bring in funding.
We sure would welcome that. If I can just take a brief liberty to give a real positive to Assemblyman Alejo. He recognized our concern, and he helped us out, or is helping us out currently, with some legislation related to the low carbon transfer program, which is a cap and trade program. That program recently came into existence, and those dollars are intended to really expand service. They're after trying to reduce greenhouse gases by expanding service and attracting more people to buses. We haven't been able to adequately tap those dollars because we're not in an expansion mode. We're in a contraction mode. And so we don't qualify for those dollars. So we asked Assemblyman Alejo if he would help us out by sponsoring some legislation that would allow us to use those cap and trade dollars to sustain service if we declare a fiscal emergency, and we could do that for up to 3 years while we get our act together and fix our structural problem. He sponsored that, crafted and sponsored that legislation. I was up in Sacramento all day yesterday at the Assembly Transportation Committee. He presented that. I testified. We got a unanimous vote. It has some more steps to go through, but I just want to publicly acknowledge his great efforts in helping us out. Will it fix our big problem? It won't, but it'll help, and it takes many pieces to fix this kind of a problem.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Mayor Pro Tem?
I do sit on the board, and so I've heard this presentation and longer version of it. This is a shortened version, and I think it would have been good to bring the map and demonstrate some of the coverage and some of what we're definitely potentially going to be losing, so that people could understand, you know, the impact further, at least visually see it. I just wanted to get clarification again that in April 22nd, we would be seeing another updated version of the routes and changes and revisions to some of the route changes. I just wanted to highlight too that at the last meeting, there was some concerns about health services and people being able to access those health services, especially along Freedom Boulevard. There was also concerns about the Social Security office and people being able to visit and access that during their open office hours. And I just received a comment that I wanted to, verbalize, that people were concerned about the proposed route dropping them off further from the entryway of the Social Security office, which would mean, having to navigate some of the sidewalks and right, there aren't any sidewalks over there. And so that being a very genuine concern for people. And so wanting to address that, if possible, by the April 22nd when we see an updated plan.
Sure. And Barrow and team have taken note of that. They're investigating that along with a number of other observations that were made. We can't guarantee that we're going to fix every observation that's made, but we're evaluating them.
Councilmember Dutra?
Thanks. I didn't know it was comment time. I thought we were just asking questions.
Oh, yeah,
so,
yeah.
I guess if it's comment time, I'll comment as well. I'm the vice chair of Metro, so I sit on the board as well with Karina. And I wanted to make a couple comments. One is, I guess, a question so you can clarify to people. I mean, I already know the answer, but what would all these cuts add up to be that that are being proposed?
Right. So currently, everything that's been proposed is about $5.5 million. So we're still about $1 million short. And that's where we get into looking for other efficiencies, those positions that I would defund and those kinds of things to try to bridge that gap.
Right. So I want to make that clarification that even with these cuts, we are still $1 million short. So this only adds up to $5.5 million. I did want to say I wanted to thank Eduardo and I wanted for all the hard work that he's done as well. And I know that there are a lot of people here today that are going to be speaking on this issue. We have a couple things that will be very helpful to help combat this issue, and one is getting the Cabrillo students to have a self-help fee, which we've been working with them to do. They vote at the end of April, so if you want to help, put your energy towards that. Eduardo, I think, is maybe, I don't know who the contact person is, but I know you can contact Eduardo and he will definitely lead you guys in the right direction for making that work, because that's close to $1 million there. And second of all is getting the RTC tax passed in November. And again, like you said earlier, that's another about $2.2 million that will be coming back to our paracrews. So these are important, two important things that we need to be working on, because what we're looking at right now is worst case scenario. If we sit back and do nothing and neither of the two options pass, this is the reality. That's just it. But if we work hard and get these two things to move forward, we will be able to see it lessen. So the community right now is seeing worst case scenario. So we either step up and we work hard to get the things done that we need to get done in order to save our routes and our frequencies, and that's what we need to do. That's where we should put our energy. I also wanted to say that Chair Rodkin, Director McPherson, and myself, as well as some staff members, will be heading to Washington, D.C. in May to lobby our federal government to get the funds coming to us, because that's the big problem here. Our state and federal funds, they have been reduced. And a lot of it, we depend on the gas tax. Well, guess what? People are using gas-efficient cars nowadays in larger numbers than they would ever have thought of. So we're losing money all the way around everywhere. So we need to really figure out a way to get more money from the government. This isn't a for-profit business. We are subsidized, and that's the fact. So we need to make sure that we are going out there and getting as much money as possible. And I want to thank you also for explaining operational money versus capital, because a lot of times people say, "Oh, you have all this money." But that's not the reality. Yes, it may look like we have money, but you only can spend money on certain things. So some things are meant for operations, and some are for capital, and a lot of times you can't mix it. So when someone's saying, "Oh, you're building this, new building, or you're doing this, you're getting new buses," well, that money could only be intended for it to be used on those certain items. So I know that there's a lot of clarification that needs to go on. I appreciate you coming and speaking. I mean, we have been fighting for Metro, and I know that the two of us have been fighting for South County for some time, and we are going to continue to fight. For me, what I said at the last meeting, that people for Metro, education is very important to me. Cutting routes to get to Cabrillo and to UCSC, that's detrimental, because that means that people in our community will not be getting an education. And in order to be a community that's moving forward, we need to have smart kids. And taking away their ability to get to school, that's not okay with me. So that's why I've been working very hard with Cabrillo College, is because I don't want to see our kids here in this community not be able to get an education because we're having issues with our bus routes. So I hope we all can work as a community together to make sure that we can soften the blow. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate the comments.
Thank you. So no more questions. Seeing no more questions from the council, we will open it up for public input.
I like to raise it up a little bit. Eduardo Montesino, I'll probably take a little bit more than 3 minutes. I hope you allow me. But as I remember history, I was here for that history. I've been there at Metro for 17 years, so I know a little bit about what has gone on for those many years. In 2008, we did cut some service, but we also had hiring freeze. We didn't hire any bus drivers or hardly any staff. 2010, 2011, we did a service cut. Then 2012, we did bring it back. The reason is the finance department all of a sudden had an overflow of money left over, so the community and board members weren't really accustomed to getting, cutting the service and getting a lot of pressure from their community, so they brought it back. Yes, I do agree. We have been using reserves. We haven't, costs have gone up. With the sales tax that the community passed in 78, 79, it's 1980 money. Back then, 50, you can buy a bus for about $50,000. Now, like Mr. Clifford said, it's over, about 600,000 at least. But we are in a structure that I'm in disagreement that we need to cut that severity of about the service. I think we could do with a little bit less, because even under he just talked about, we're using 10% of the budgeted in reserves every year. Under the current plan, that flexible money that he was talking about, now that flexible money is not going over to operations, it's going to go to reserves. So now we're going to, instead of putting our emphasis in our community and bus routes, we're going to put in reserves for, yes, we need new buses, but usually, state of good repair, and like Mr. Dutra just said, you're going to go out to Washington. There's areas that the grants are available. Yes, they're competitive, they're harder to get, Tiger grants. Like I said, it's state of good repair. But it's more easily available to get grants for building things than operational. TDAs let me go back. STIC, which is Small Transit Incentive Cities funds that comes to the federal government, they're going to place $1 million over in reserves. The fuel tax credit was usually was going to the operation fund. Now it's going to go into the capital. That's another $600,000. So we're aspirating our own structural deficit. We do have a structural deficit. I agree. We do have, but we're creating it bigger by putting these sources at this time we could be using for bus service. And I understand Mr. Clifford's dilemma, because he comes from big systems. In big systems, you're able to do all these things. Put the STIC, put the fuel tax credit, STA, all in the capital. They do that because they have, like VTA or Los Angeles, they're under their 5th or 6th sales tax. Small communities cannot. They cannot survive without using STIC or fuel tax or STA for operations, because we don't have in our community, we don't have a sales tax. We're barely going to go into our first sales tax. And as you'll see, transit is not a priority. Paratransit's our priority. So there's a difference. We're looked at as the dirty bus that nobody wants to ride and nobody wants to fund. They talk about like it should be a priority and we need to entice more people to ride it, but they don't fund it. So, like I said, there's big things are going on, but like I said, it's priorities. I've always said, and Mr. Dutra and Mr. Cervantes, Ms. Cervantes, you heard me over and over. It's priorities. If you put your priorities into putting more of your capital funds in your capital reserves, then this is the way to go. If you prioritize bus routes to the community, then you have to look at something else. Like I've talked about furloughs. Mr. Clifford talks about whether they're short term. 2007, Mr. Mayor, you said that they weren't still here. We're 2016. That's about, guessing, almost 9 years. That was in short term. And it actually, you know, provided a lot of service to the community Monday to Thursday, but it provided parks, airport, police, fire, all the necessities for the city. And employees suffered 10% of their wages. Management went a long way. Some of the comments that I've heard from management is, oh, management can't take a furlough. They did it here. Carlos, our predecessor, did it. All the staff did it. Employees did it for many years. We could save, if they were placed in furloughs, we could save money to save routes. And that's all I'm talking about. It's like I'm trying to find solutions. We're going out there to the community, as Mr. Dutra said, to advocate for the Cabrillo assessment fee. We're going to be out there since tomorrow with trying to get information to the students so they can you know, value their vote and value their conscience. So we get this information out there so they know what they're voting for. We're also, you know, advocating for. We're going to be advocating if the sales tax comes in November. We're looking for different things. We're looking for different options, but everything's on the table. We're looking, you know, a different perspective. But like I said, it's priorities, and the board is going to have to look at, as you all members have to look at, its priorities. Where are your priorities? So I want to thank you, but I also want to give you some historical information that I was able to get some attention. That was able to fund. It says transportation. We've done it better since 1970. Real simple brochure. Really good information from back in the day. Very simple. Investing in our community. You know, this is you know, community 101. How we get stuff done, and the only way we can get stuff done is by working together. So thank you.
Thank you. Please state your name and your city or district. Oh, shoot.
Good evening, Council. My name is Johnny Perez. I live here in Watsonville. I'm a full-time math professor at Harnell College, a professor here at our local Cabrillo College, I'm a mentor at UC Berkeley, and educational coach all over the world. So every decision we make in our life has an impact, whether it be big or small, positive or negative. It has an impact. Today, I hope to create a large positive impact on our community. If 16 years ago my bus route ceased to run, my education would have ended with it. If 16 years ago my bus route ceased to run, I wouldn't have been blessed to educate the thousands that have walked through my classroom in this very community. If 16 years ago my bus route ceased to run, I wouldn't have been able to educate professors across the United States and the world. Okay. You see, this is just one story. I think today we've been talking a lot about the smaller picture, but we're forgetting about the bigger picture. This service might not seem to have an impact that people have been looking for, but this service has been the driving force of this community. Okay. Here's an epsilon-sized snapshot for you. It's no secret that Cabrillo has played a huge role in our community. Okay. It's also no secret that the college is having trouble, with its enrollments. So imagine taking away the opportunity of these students and the future of them to get to school and everything along that goes with it. So not only are we adding to those devastating statistics, but now all that money, millions of dollars, as many of you know, because some of you sit on the board of Cabrillo and have many multiple roles with the college. All those millions of dollars invested into Cabrillo by our government to help out our students, Latinos in particular, Title V and so forth, been poured down the drain because that audience can no longer get to school. What a disservice to our country, and what a disservice to our community. today our community today speaks out, right? So I've been listening, all right? And these members of our community really value this community and the people in this community. So we're talking about access to health services. We're talking about educational services. And denying them opportunity to work and support their family is just a disservice to this community. And again, we're seeing the effects here as I listen. We're seeing the effects of too little being done too late. And if we continue on this path and continue looking at the small picture, imagine what it might seem like small routes being cut, but these are opportunities been denied, and all these amazing things that can happen for our community, those pictures, those doors are being slammed. And all those amazing things that have happened and have happened up there are now shut. They're now shut. What amazes me is how a lot of members in here, my former students, in a matter of 1 week, have created a wealth of information to be shared with our community on the news and here and there. But yet, we've been suffering through this problem, it seems, for a while, but yet I haven't heard today I hear that we want information, we want the community to be involved, but boy, has it been hard. Boy, I haven't heard the message. But now that I'm here, so how can these people who they have busy lives, they're busy with school, they're busy with their families, how can they put out so much information like that, no cost, but yet when executives have all this power, how is it so hard to get information from some of the people that can really feed and help solve the solution? So
thank you.
Thank you for your time.
You know, I just want to remind people, there's 3 minutes when there's a beeper. That means that it's 3 minutes.
Good evening. I will keep my comments short. My name is Daniel Dodge. It's a pleasure to be here in this chambers. Former council member, former mayor, resident in District 5, former Cabrillo College bus rider student. I also happen to be a former board member of the Santa Cruz Metro and a former chair. The issues that you face in front of you, when we're talking about these draconian cuts to bus routes to our community, will affect the quality of life for the residents of South County, the Pajaro Valley, and the city of Watsonville. The routes that are being mentioned to you tonight are their lifeblood. The express routes to Santa Cruz, the 69A that's a workhorse that takes residents from my neighborhood to their jobs, to their medical care, to their education. It's access. These cuts that are being faced, that put it in front of you, that we're talking about, they are going to affect the quality of life. They're going to affect opportunities for young people. They're going to affect opportunities for our seniors to be able to get to medical care, to get to the Social Security office. This is real, and I advise you to take it as being real. I advise you to take it as understanding that it affects hundreds, if not thousands, of our residents on a daily basis. Not to mention the denial of care for those that rely on public transportation with disability needs. I know that there's sincerity from the general manager of the Santa Cruz Metro, but my good friend Eduardo Montesino put it right. It's perspective and priorities. What is important to our community? The health, the vibrant well-being, the access to employment. These are things that are being affected. So I ask you not to be in support of these cuts, to be able to look at other alternatives, to be able to look at what we can do to go forward, not to take 10 steps backwards. I echo the sentiments of the previous speaker. I was able to be here tonight because had access to be able to take the 71 workhorse over 30 years ago to be able to get to higher academic education. Altered not for just my life, they altered the life of my children and my grandchildren, and some could even say my place in the community. So I ask you to take these very seriously. I ask you not to support these cuts in any kind of shape, size, or form. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Noelona, and I live in Watsonville. I have some information to share with you guys concerning the bus reductions. This is how easy or hard it was to access information as to all the bus cuts and stuff. You actually have to follow all these links. I'll send this up to you guys. The original packet is about 350 pages. I sifted through some of the most informational stuff that I thought was would be informative for you guys. I want to thank Daniel Dodge and everybody who came up and speak. It is very important, like Daniel Dodge said, to make the right decision for your community, please. This is going to affect us all very, very much. Schools. We can't stop saying that enough. The schools, most Cabrillo students don't know. Awareness is not being put out at Cabrillo. I have been involved with trying to gather as much information, and I didn't even know there was anything going up for vote. So I think that's also an issue. I think there should be more awareness as more information as to what really is being proposed to these Cabrillo students. It's $50 a unit these days to take a class. One math class, 5 units, $250, $300 book. Then add $40 to every student. You know, I really see that as hard to swallow. But I thank you guys for your time. I thank you guys for listening to the community and its needs. And I would like to let you guys know that if you help us, you know, with making the right choice, we support every single one of you in your position. Thank you.
So I just wanted to just clarify, based on those comments, there is no vote being made tonight. We were just getting an update of where we are. We'll get an updated version of the routes based on some concerns that we've heard. April 22nd, and I believe all of you are aware that the meeting's taking place at 8:30 here in Watsonville. So we'll have an update then. And no vote will be taken until the meeting in May for Metro.
Public comment?
Well, my name is Patricia Foreman. I'm a Watsonville resident. And Karina and Jimmy Dutra, I thank you very, very much for your service on this issue. And you gentlemen seem like very kind and well-informed people. But you do not know what it is to ride a bus in Watsonville. And you do not know what it is to get to an 8:30 meeting at the Metro in Santa Cruz on a Metro bus if you are coming from Watsonville, when the first bus is at 7 o'clock in the morning. And it takes an hour and a half to get there, presuming you have no children to get to school and you have no job to go to. So you may know a lot about the money, but you know nothing about the personal cost of riding buses. And I have never seen any of you on a bus. And that's in 2 years. People can't get to work, even to a council meeting at 8:30 here, if they have a job. And if you are riding a bus, you probably have a job of some kind. So good luck on that one, getting people to come. I hope the drivers are the first people consulted on the routes, because talking to every single driver on every single route, they do have a lot of suggestions. And there is a suggestion hear from the audience that the drivers and the staff and the community be given some way to very, very honestly answer questions about the bus routes and how it affects them. What happens to the old buses once we finish them? Do you know what happens to the buses? What happens, Jimmy, to the buses? They're all sold. The emission controls are removed, and they run another 20 years. That's a thought. If we can't solve this problem, I really think we should begin discussing the privatization of the bus routes, at least within the city of Watsonville, because obviously a lot of money is being spent for rather poor service. There's a suggestion that there should be no more overtime for anybody, no way, no how, that there should be no raises for administration in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Furloughs are an even better idea. You're talking about students, and students being able to get to education. What about their parents being able to get to work? There aren't going to be any students if there aren't any working parents. Has anyone can stop to consider this? I'm very glad that the students have a representative on the council, but do the parents? Do the homeless? Do the mentally ill? Do the elderly? Who rides the buses? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Susan Sanford, and I'd like to start with Norm had left me his sheet to actually read to you for him. And what he was asking is that we must tell our city council members to negotiate a lesser reduction of Metro's present proposal, which discontinues, cuts out totally, weekend service of routes 79 and 72. Now, I live in the same neighborhood that he does off of Tuttle. It has two huge senior and disabled communities there. And that 79 is the only bus that goes through our community at all. As it is, when last year they cut the amount of buses going, how many times it goes through. So there's nothing after 6 o'clock at night. If I don't get the 6 o'clock bus home, like now, I have to walk home, which is miles, and I can't do that physically. So they already cut that out. And as a senior, it's kind of odd to suddenly have a deadline that I have to be home by a certain time. I haven't done that since I was around 14, So it's very difficult to have to deal with that. Plus, to cut it out on the weekends is absurd. How can we not be able to get out of our own community for an entire weekend? What are we supposed to do? I also want to mention that last year, what happened when they went through the changes on Metro Paracruz and some other changes, I was able to go to every single meeting they had because a driver told me about the meetings. The public meetings were not announced until a letter went out 5 days after the end of the public meetings. I was the only one there to represent Metro Paracruz. There was one other person who was also there to represent the Highway 17. The letter didn't come out to us. It was backdated. Oh, sure, February 14th or something. But the reality was it did not come out for 5 days after those meetings happened. So the public was not informed. And once again, I don't see the public being informed. You have to have a computer, go online, and see what's happening. Good luck. I went online. Excuse me. I'm a senior vocational rehab counselor for the state. And I had to have a master's degree for that, okay? But with a master's degree, I couldn't figure out what the hell they were talking about. I couldn't find anything on the cuts. I couldn't find it all. If it hadn't been for the people, Eduardo and other people that are with the union, I never would have known what was going to be cut and what wasn't. And I want to just say that I support what the lady before me said. It's really true. We are hurting not only workers and seniors and disabled, which actually they're out of compliant for ADA Section 6 on this, especially to cut out a weekend route. And what happened last year was not only did they raise the price of Parametricus, I have to go on because this has to be said, Now, coming from my house on Tuttle to go to Safeway on Freedom, to go to CVS on Main, I have to pay $6 each way. If I want to go all the way to Boulder Creek, it's $6 one way. And that's because the only way I can get out of my neighborhood is take one bus to the Metro Center in Watsonville, and I had to take another bus. Because of that, and because of how they did a bait and switch on the very last meeting when they had the vote, now I have to pay $12 round trip, which I can't afford, okay? I don't know anybody that can. So I want to say that, and I have letters coming out. The other thing I want to say is this, very quickly. There is something coming up in the state around money for this. And what I was told by Bill Bonding when I met with him is he said that there are moderate Democrats in the state of California we need to reach out to and talk to them and get them to vote for this money going into the transit system. And we have to remember that the transit system is a public transit system for the public. Thank you.
You for your comments.
Good evening. My name is Eduardo Rojas. And first of all, I really find it very difficult for the situation, financial situation, to be expressed to you all within 20 minutes. This has been going on for years, apparently, a recession that has occurred back in 2008. I really feel that we need SC Metro to step up and hold accountability for their financial state. Public transportation is not a luxury. The community cannot afford for public transportation to be eliminated due to poor financial management. The SC Metro is fiduciary responsible, and they need to be responsible. Enough is enough. I think the people here have voiced their concerns, and that life depends on transportation, whether it's a vehicle or whether it's their own 2 feet or public transportation. So personally, we need to do something about this. We need public involvement, step by step, step by step. At the moment, I have been involved since last meeting, and I think the people is outraged. The people is now had enough, and we just keep expressing back and forth, that yes, we are concerned about the people. We are going to be dealing about this next meeting, and it's going to be updated. How are the people going to be updated? I know that there is a website where the people can go get updated, but personally, I feel that there needs to be more communication. A piece of paper on the inside the bus is not gonna catch my attention. And I have recently noticed that it's very vague as far as we are making some changes to now more clear as far as the proposal of reductions. So if there is proposals, the people of this community of Watsonville has opposed that proposal. And I think we will continue to oppose. Please, we're asking, we're begging, we are demanding that the council and the SC Metro Board do what is right for the community.
This is time for public comment. No more. Is there any more? Make sure you get ready as soon as they're finishing their 3 minutes, as soon as their beeper.
Hi, my name is Lupita Sanchez. I am from Watsonville, and I've been living in Santa Cruz and Watsonville back and forth for some time. I'm only going to tell my story because that's what I know best. I grew up in Watsonville, and my mother was a stay-at-home mom. My dad drives to San Jose every day, back and forth for the past 24 years just for work. So since my mom didn't have much money, all she was able to do was to take us on the bus for day trips. So that's all she was able to afford. There was 4 of us. Well, there's still 4 of us. So she would make sure we would read all day, write in our journals. And there's only so much you can do with 4 children before you go crazy and you're at home with them all day long. So she would take us to the bus and she'd give us each $2. We'd take the bus to Safeway and we'd each buy gum or collect our money together and buy a bunch of stuff together, come back home and eat it. So what I did forget to mention is that my mother currently and still does suffer from chronic depression. So if it weren't for being able to afford to take the bus every day and leave the house, who knows what could have happened to us or to my mother. So with that being said, rather than just seeing it as a issue for transportation, it is also something more than that. I was a UCSC student for 4 years. For the last 2 years, I lived on my parents' bedroom floor, and I had to go to school every day. I started an 8 a.m. class, but the schedules for the bus routes didn't work very well with my university and class schedule. So I had to take the bus around 5:45. I got to my campus after taking 3 different buses by 6 o'clock, and my class didn't start until 8. So I was in campus for 2 hours, waiting around until my class started. And since I was very involved on my campus, I didn't end school or being involved until around 11 o'clock. And then I would take the last bus, which is around midnight, back home. When I was back in Santa Cruz, I would come back to Watsonville to attend meetings here for community organizational reasons, and then take the last bus from Watsonville back to Santa Cruz as well, and that was also the bus at midnight. So not only will reducing the bus and transit, I know it feels like it would do a lot more, but it would actually hurt the community a lot more than you believe. And you would only know that if you were part of this community and if you took the bus routes every day.
This is a final chance for a public comment. If that concludes the public comment.
Hi, my name's Jesus Garcia, and I live here in Watsonville. And I just want to say, about a year and a half ago, I was working here in Watsonville. I had an opportunity for a promotion. If it wasn't for the buses that passed by the mall, I wouldn't be able to even get to work today. So on my way to work every day, I get the 69A. We pass by the hospital. I see a lot of disabled people that can barely make it onto the bus, can barely make it from the bus stop to the hospital itself. Some people in wheelchairs, even pushing themselves, can't even afford to, they don't have the strength in their arms to push themselves, so they have to push themselves backwards onto the wheelchairs just to barely make it to the hospital. And just the fact that those 2 routes that pass by the hospital are being cut, it's just, it really breaks my heart to see my community being affected that way. I also see students on the way. I've talked to a lot of people. Ever since I knew that this was happening, I've been trying to spread the word as much as I can, and it's been mind-boggling, the amount of people that don't know, that are on these routes and don't know that these cuts are being made. So please, as members of the council and of the Metro, really appreciate your support in not having any of these routes cut. They're really going to be affecting our community. So please take that into consideration. Thank you for your time.
Hi, everyone. My name is Frances, and I'm here from Watsonville. I'm a community member. So I just want to say, first of all, that education is very important to me. It's my number one in my whole life. That's what has enlightened me and what has made me conscious of my community and what they need. And I feel like if it wasn't for the bus, my career wouldn't have started with the education. I went to UC Davis. I graduated in 2011. My mom works. She's a single mother, like a lot of community members here. So I would have to take the bus, right? It would take me an hour and a half to get to school. If I wasn't motivated enough to want an education, I don't know how I would have done it. I know a lot of kids nowadays, they don't have motivation to go to school. And with the obstacles, it just makes them harder to get there. So I know that they care a lot about, they say they care a lot about our community, but if they're cutting everything, they should also cut the administrative's salary too, because they get paid more than $100,000 a year. So if they're cutting it, it should be evenly distributed. Thank you, that's all I want to say.
Seeing there's no more public input, I do want to mention one final thing. I want folks to be aware that the Metro has their separate board meetings, and their meeting is going to be on April 22nd at 8:30 a.m. here at this council chambers, and they're having the sessions on May 5th and May 9th from 3 to 8 p.m. Sorry, one of them, the one on the 5th, is going to be at the Powell Valley Health Trust, which is the building in front of the hospital. I imagine the conference room, and the one on May 9th is going to be here downstairs at the Watsonville Public Library and also the community room there. Do you have any comments?
I just wanted to clarify too, nothing's finalized yet. So I was just reading the sheet here and it says they decided to make an announcement after they finalized their new bus routes. Nothing is finalized. So you have plenty of opportunities to go to your public comments, and actually maybe a suggestion, if we can, have we thought about maybe putting these on half sheets or quarter sheets and handing them out to people as they got on the bus? You know, if it's posted, I guess someone said that they missed it. So at least for a while, if we can start putting them in the hands of people, that way they can at least be aware of where they can go. Thank you.
Maybe with the Metro meetings too.
Physically, yeah.
So that concludes this item. Next, we have item B, update on Medical Cannabis Advisory Committee. This item has no action required. If we can have the staff report.
Good evening, Mayor Hernandez, members of the council. My name is Susie Merriam with the Community Development Department. This is just a short informational item to let you know that the mayor has chosen and appointed the Medical Cannabis Advisory Committee, and the members are listed up on the screen. We've got 11 members, including 2 members from the general public as well as a local veteran. We've got 2 members from the health education community. One is the head of the Pajaro Valley Unified School District. We are working currently to set up a meeting time in which everyone can make the meeting, and it looks like it will probably be the last week of April, and we will be noticing that meeting with a 10-day notice. And that concludes my report.
Any questions from council members? Councilmember Garcia.
When the committee makeup was being discussed here on council, one of the things that I had requested was if it was possible for at least from the general public appointees, if they could be a parent of a school-age student, and I just wondered if that happened.
I believe that at least one of the general public members is a parent.
Do you know which one it is?
I think Ari.
No, it's
no,
not
Ari.
Alan.
Then it's Alan.
it's Mr. Flores.
Yeah.
Mm. Okay, good.
Councilmember Dutra.
Oh, sorry.
I guess Mr. Flores, what district is he from?
You have to defer that to the mayor.
District 1.
District 1? Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Hurst?
Yes, sir. The county's had the C4 committee going on for quite some time, and I understand their meetings have been very long and lengthy. What can we learn to do differently, or what can we vision as a process so that this doesn't just get bogged down and actually we can get some results here?
What we're envisioning is very focused meetings that will be no more than 2 hours in length. And what my idea is that we're going to tackle one item at a time and go through what the original draft ordinance had and review each of the different types of cannabis uses at each meeting. So we can go through cultivation, we can go through dispensaries at each meeting, go through the draft regulations, discuss, and then make recommendations. At the first couple meetings, of course, we're going to be focusing on taxation only so that we can get a measure on the ballot by June. But we're looking at very focused meetings and just tackling the original ordinance head on and figuring out what's best for Watsonville.
Thank you for that question, Councilmember Hurst. C4 has 7.5 hour scheduled meetings, and oftentimes it goes to 8, 9, 10 hours.
That won't be happening here.
Councilmember Bilicic?
I just want to say that the composition of this committee does not look very balanced to me, but that's just my opinion.
Is there any other questions before we take it to the pub? Mayor Pro Tem?
I had a question regarding the timeline and when does the work of the committee need to be done to be able to get something on the ballot in November?
We have to have that done by June and submitted for the ballot measure. So we're looking at bringing it back to council probably by the end of May. So it's pretty quick.
Councilmember Garcia?
Yes. Actually, I asked Gail Pellerin by when we would have to submit, and she said not until August the 8th or the 12th.
The only problem is that the council, their last meeting before the August 8th meeting is July 5th, I believe. So if you want to have more time, you would have to schedule more meetings and not have the summer off. But as it is right now, your last meeting is July 5th.
So we could make our decision in July.
That's the last meeting that you have.
Okay. So not June, but July.
But you would have to have some hearings before that.
And Mayor, Council, the one item that we do need clarity for to place on the November ballot is a taxation issue. And I think over the next, month and a half, working with Susie and the committee, I think we can get that back to council. So it's not going to need that much time for the July meeting. We can get that done sooner and make sure that it happens to be on the ballot.
Any other questions? Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to do you have any additional comments? And that concludes this item. Next, we have item 10, public hearings, ordinances, and appeals. Consideration of modification to Watsonville Municipal Code, Chapter 14 and 16, Central Commercial District, Chapter 1418, definitions establishing emergency shelters, transitional housing, and supportive housing as allowed users, and chapter regarding standards for emergency shelters. That was a long one.
Thank you, Mayor Hernandez, members of the council. Senate Bill 2 became effective on January 2008, and it requires local agencies to identify one or more zones where emergency shelters are allowed by right as principally permitted uses, provided that that zone includes a sufficient number of sites to accommodate the enough beds to accommodate homeless individuals in the community. So to comply with SB2 and address homeless needs in the city of Watsonville, staff has drafted amendments to the municipal code as well as a new chapter 1443 to bring in some standards for emergency shelters to address the requirements of SB2. In addition, SB2 also clarified the definitions of emergency shelters, transitional housing, and supportive housing, and so we are changing or modifying the definitions of those three in our definitions section of the municipal code to meet state law. So over the last several months, city staff has researched and reviewed other adopted SB2 ordinances by a range of cities, including in the state, including the city of Santa Cruz, as well as other places, in an attempt to determine appropriate regulations for the city of Watsonville. Factors such as proximity to transit, distance from sensitive uses, and the availability of land and suitable facilities pointed us to the Central Commercial Zoning District, which already has the Salvation Army Team Challenge Emergency Shelter facility right on Union Street. So if we look at the Central Commercial Zoning District as the principally permitted use area for emergency shelters, we looked at this as it's got location of services near the downtown core area. There's transportation nearby, and we've got the existing Salvation Army Teen Challenge shelter there in the Central Commercial Zoning District. Because the city can currently accommodate the estimated homeless population in the city, it's not critical to identify any additional zoning districts to be available for future emergency shelters. However, it is important to continue to plan for future capacity needs. So the total acreage in the Central Commercial Zoning District is about 38, and there is, again, sufficient area to accommodate additional emergency shelters in the future. However, we do have the Teen Challenge Salvation Army shelter, which can accommodate the total number of homeless that we've got already. So just to go through our emergency shelter standards, the draft standards include the allowance or the accommodation of support services, a limit on the length of stay, and per state law, that's 6 months in any 12-month period. The maximum occupancy for the shelter, and that would be based on building code requirements. The requirement for a management and operations plan, as well as security. Just to let you know, these standards will apply to any new emergency shelters that are coming into the city and would not affect any existing ones that we've got. The new ordinance also will address the provision of support services and management as well. The development standards in the emergency shelter ordinance address lighting, outdoor activity, trash collection, and again, the maximum stay. The facility also has to provide areas for dining, restrooms, and the private areas for the provision of support services. Additionally, the management plan requires the consideration of security inside and outside the facility, training of staff, and communication with owners and residents in the neighborhood. Also, what the staff-to-client ratio is, what the process for intake and checkout, their hours of operation as well, so that there's some dialogue with the city and the emergency facility, and we know what's going on as well, and it's clearly stated and planned out. So this was reviewed by the Planning Commission at their March 1st hearing. On the afternoon of that hearing, staff was able to meet with Mike Borden, who runs Teen Challenge Monterey Bay, and he went through the original draft ordinance, which had additional requirements based off the City of Santa Cruz's ordinance that allowed for storage and laundry facilities and recreation areas that Mr. Borden felt that kind of placed an undue burden on emergency shelters and also kind of made them a little bit more too inviting, to say the least, for the homeless population. If we're providing all these services, it's more like a hotel, and much harder for the emergency shelter operator to provide all those things when really what their main mission is to provide a shelter for homeless and overnight. So based on his recommendations, we did remove those, and you see that in your draft ordinance before you tonight. And the Planning Commission, after considering public testimony, voted unanimously to recommend the council adopt the proposed text amendments. So with that, the object of this is to comply with SB2 to allow emergency shelters as a principally permitted use in the Central Commercial Zoning District. In addition to that, to introduce a new chapter 1443 for emergency shelters, so that we've got some performance standards and management for any future emergency shelters in this city. And Planning Commission is recommending that the City Council adopt the text amendments and new chapter 1443. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Councilmember Garcia.
Susie, I have 3 questions. My first question is, SB2 was adopted in 2008. Why has it taken 8 years for us to update our regulations?
It has come as a requirement as part of our update of our housing element. So we're rolling that into the housing element update.
So you mean we didn't have to pay attention to SB2 when it was passed?
We procedurally now have to pay attention to it because we want our housing element to be certified. And in order for our housing element to be certified, we have to adopt regulations to comply with SB2.
I'm glad. Okay. My second question is, and I'm going to read what you wrote, because the city, and you mentioned it also, because the city can currently accommodate the estimated homeless population of the city, it is not critical to identify additional acreage available for future emergency shelters. However, it is important to continue to plan for future capacity needs. So in terms of planning for future capacity needs, what does that look like?
Well, essentially what that refers to is right now our emergency shelters, our existing shelters, can accommodate our existing homeless population if they choose to use them. The Central Commercial Zoning District can accommodate additional shelters. So it's got enough acreage in that zoning district so that we can have additional emergency shelters located in that district in the future if we need them.
Okay, good. Okay, and then my final question has to do with your conclusion recommendation. It states here, it mentions the Pajaro Valley Rescue Mission and the Salvation Army, and I wondered if you didn't mean to say the Pajaro Valley Shelter Services, or why did you say the Pajaro Valley Rescue Mission?
I probably meant to say shelter services.
Okay, and so based on that, are these the only 2 shelters that we have to accommodate the 321 homeless people that have been identified by assessment?
I'd have to go back and look at the housing element, which I don't have with me tonight. Sorry. But we do have, I believe so.
Those 2 shelters can accommodate 321 homeless people.
I'm not sure if it's 321.
Well, yes, because in the information you gave us, in terms of the assessment, I think 2011 or whenever, it identified 321 homeless people in Watsonville.
Yes, and our housing element has indicated that the existing shelters can accommodate those.
Wow.
Not necessarily emergency shelters, but existing shelters can, yes. Shelters are just overnight accommodations. They're a little bit different. So we've got the transitional housing, the emergency shelters.
So we have all those others
Yeah.
available within this zone or outside of the zone?
They're both within and without. Like the new, the expanded Teen Challenge transitional housing is in the Central Commercial Core Area District, which is in the old Baker Brothers building. So it's a different district.
Councilmember Trina Kaufman-Gomez.
Thank you. Can you elaborate on what you mean or what this policy is about the Good Neighbor Communication Plan? What does that tell us? What is that doing?
Again, that's just providing outreach to neighbors for any new emergency shelters. So actually providing maybe an emergency phone number or a manager phone number to adjacent residents or residents on the street. So that if there are any issues, any concerns with any members of the homeless population or any issues happening off-site of the shelter, that the shelter needs to be aware of that be happening. That there's a rapport between the shelter and their neighbors.
And is there any other fiscal obligation that we have other than to identify the location that we would have available for these resources?
No.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I had a question regarding the proposed changes. I know that for the facilities at the Baker Brothers, it was a conditional permit. With these kinds of changes, it would, any new proposed emergency shelters would just be an administrative permit, or it would still require a hearing?
It would be principally permitted, so that would be an administrative permit. It would not come to hearing. And again, that's only for emergency shelters. If it were a transitional housing or another type of housing, it wouldn't fall into this.
And the Baker Brothers shelter was a combination of both, right? It was the
Yes.
transitional and it was also the emergency shelter.
Yes.
And so I'm concerned about this because I know that the surrounding neighborhood, it is, a higher density area. And so here we are in terms of accommodating, a greater population in a very, very small area of town. And so I recognize currently that we have capacity to house individuals under multiple circumstances of homelessness. But I also am planning for the future. I do think it's important to identify other parts of town that can also accommodate emergency shelters, just because of those high impact concerns. And the high impact concerns, they carry over to some of what's being deleted from the requirements in terms of what looks like transportation planning for some of the folks utilizing the emergency shelter, right. Because I think a big concern with the shelter coming to the Baker Brothers facility, it was about making sure that there was proper case management on site to mitigate any potential conflicts, both at the facility and then also in the surrounding neighborhood. I also think that the issue of the recreation area I was really concerned about because I don't believe in housing a bunch of people without the proper amenities, because I do believe that we're still responsible for assuring some quality of life issues, even under the most severe of circumstances for our residents. So I'm concerned about those aspects, and I'm also concerned with the aspect of not being able to sort of have a broader review of what the potential facility would be in downtown.
Okay. Just to remind you that Central Commercial isn't the Central Commercial Core area, so it's not in our downtown Main Street. The Baker Brothers building is actually in the Central Commercial Core area. So we chose Central Commercial because it kind of rings around the downtown, but it's not in our downtown core. It's kind of that transitional. But I totally understand what you're saying about recreation, and the argument against it was the city isn't providing funding for these shelters currently. If that was something we wanted to do in the future and provide additional burdens like providing laundry facilities and private storage and outside recreation area, then that's something that they could do, but privately funded, it's very difficult. It's just, you know, it's kind of philosophy.
And then the other part of this was also the fees for review for the city. How much are they? And I mean, the proposal here is to waive those fees.
Well, no, the proposal is not to charge any additional fees above and beyond for review. So if this came in and let's say they're building an entirely new building, they would still have to go through a design review process, and that's about $1,800. It comes out to about $2,000 for planning fees, and then they would have all the building permit fees and the impact fees. If they were going into an existing building like Baker Brothers, the planning fee would be about $100. Then they'd still need to pay all the building permit fees.
So just in this commercial core area, then it would just be an administratively permit process.
Yeah.
And then any area around town, the proposal for emergency shelter could come forward, but it would be a conditional use permit.
Yeah, depending on what the regulations of that district are, yes.
Okay. On the zoning?
Yes.
Yeah.
Councilmember Dutra?
Thank you. I have many of the same concerns as Councilmember Cervantes Alejo. One that she just brought up about the bringing the project in front of the council to, you know, look at before it was approved. I kind of agree with her on that. I think that it's a project that if it does go through, needs to come in front of council. That
Planning Commission usually.
Yeah, well, Planning Commission, or Planning Commission.
Steps.
But it should go through the other steps. It shouldn't just be approved right away through the Development Department.
But that's what state law requires. SB2 requires we pick one zone where it's principally permitted.
Right. And so in that zone now, where do you, I'm thinking in my head, would you see something going in? I don't, I mean, it's so highly impacted with people and houses and.
Well, Central Commercial, I should have brought a map, but it surrounds the downtown. So there are actually a lot of residential buildings and small office buildings that could be converted to emergency shelters in the Central Commercial zoning district. Like I said, Teen Challenge, Salvation Army, they've kind of expanded along Union Street and Elm Street, taking over both commercial and residential buildings and turning them into shelter housing. So there is existing capacity. And again, they could always redevelop on any central commercial zoned parcel if they wanted to come in and start from the ground up.
Right, but I remember when the Baker Brothers was the emergency / transitional shelter went in. There were, first of all, a lot of people felt like it went in really quickly underneath their noses, and second of all, I think the impact of already parking issues, just a huge amount, affecting businesses in the area. And I know that from what I hear, at least by the police department, a few of the businesses are really affected by, the shelters near them. So, I think that you have to keep everybody in mind because we don't want to run businesses out of town, and I think, is it ABA Windows, who is the window store right next to the, across from the police station? There's a window place there.
Oh, yeah.
I'm blanking. But, I think that we have to be delicate with the businesses around as well. So I really hope that we can, make everyone happy.
It's difficult in looking at all the zoning districts and trying to figure out which one would be most appropriate. That was a very difficult decision, to make. But we've already got our emergency shelter in that district. It surrounds the downtown. It's close to, it's already a transitional zone between very, higher density commercial uses to high density residential uses. So
I wish you had a map to show us.
I too. I think it would have been much more helpful if we had a map to know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So, is that
Yeah, I know. I just
Okay.
want to see a map.
So, I just, fortunately or unfortunately, I think, yesterday I had this long morning at the Vista Verde preschool and Head Start program with the parents there, and a lot of the parents participate in both the 4-year-olds and the Head Start and the early education, I'm trying to get these names right, center. And so a lot of them told me their concerns about their day trips, how they're really confined to where they take their day trips. And they don't like going to Marinovich. They don't like going to Ramsey. They don't, once in a while they'll go to Callahan, but and definitely don't go to the plaza or downtown. They've tried it before, but they're always scared about, sort of the homeless population. I know it's, is there any way that there could be some sort of like separation requirements from schools or preschools or something like that? I don't know. Or parks from where they put these locations at? Is that within, is there a gray area?
You could. In chapter 1443, you could put distance requirements if you wanted. Other jurisdictions have done that, requiring a separation from schools, from parks, from sensitive uses.
Do we have to vote on this today?
I'll defer to Alan, but I think Mayor Council may go ahead and table this for your future date and bring it back with those comments that you made, and staff can take it under consideration.
And the
I believe
maps?
that's the case. And the maps.
I'm pulling up a map right now.
And so we could do that if council wishes to go ahead and move forward and table this, and we'll schedule it for an upcoming meeting with the maps and making additional recommendations based upon the comments made here tonight.
I mean, I think that's what the concern is with the recreational area, because these emergency shelters are only open during certain hours of the day, later in the afternoon, and people have to be out very early in the morning. And so if there isn't a place where people can wait for the shelter to be open, then that's what you're finding in our downtown area by the police department, is people standing by the businesses, people standing by people's residences, other places. So if there's just that inclusion, I don't know how specific the guidelines are in terms of what the recreational area has to include, but I do think if there's at least some kind of setback from the road, some kind of setback requirements, I'm not quite sure. It doesn't have to be, picnic tables, although I do think seating availability is important, but, some kind of area where people can wait for the shelter if they need to. Similarly, with the case management issues, the transportation plans for clients, I think I did read that part of the requirement was to provide transportation options, but I do think that there does have to be something in there that provides a little bit more information about what the plans are for case management, whether it's supporting them to get access to services. There just has to be more there, I think so, to be able to sort of make sure that people have access to resources.
Okay, and can you clarify what you're looking for in the transportation plan? Because that was one thing that...
No, what I read there was, I understand why they wanted it deleted, because the requirement looked like they wanted them to provide transportation, bus passes of some sort. I don't necessarily agree with that part, but I do think that there needs to be some kind of case management plan provided along with the proposal to build a new facility.
Okay.
So at this point, I'm going to look for a motion to table this and bring it back at a further date when we're able to study both the maps and look at the options that we have for separation requirements and for setbacks.
Mayor, I'll make the motion to table this until the proper information is brought back to us to make a decision.
I'll second the motion.
We got a second motion? And we got a motion and second? Set it backwards.
Yelisic?
Yes.
Cervantes Alejo? Yes. Kaufman Gomez,
Yes.
Dutra,
Yes.
Garcia. Yes. Hurst,
Yes.
Hernandez.
Yes. So that concludes the final action item. We have next, item 11, reports and presentations, written reports from city council members regarding conference attended as required by AB 1234, no action required. And you can contact Councilmember Trina Kaufman Gomez if you want to know about Yosemite's, what's it called now? It's a new name?
It's a Awani's principle.
That's an old name.
It's still called Awani's principle.
Oh, it is?
Mhm.
Okay.
The conference.
And then the next item is request for scheduling future agenda items. Councilmember Garcia.
I'm not asking for a future agenda item. What I like to ask for is a process. Earlier in our council meeting, we had several community members coming to us asking us to consider a resolution to put on the November ballot a 2-cent tax for sugary beverages. So my question is if there were some council members who would want it to come to the agenda, be put on the agenda, what is the process procedure to do that?
I'm going to divert to the city attorney on this, but I believe if there are at least 4 council members that wish that to be brought forth on a future agenda item for consideration, we can do that.
That's correct, or it could go to agenda review and be brought up by the 3 members of agenda review.
So in terms, well, it seems to me odd that it would be 4 members because that's a majority already. And so
I think what the city manager was talking about is it could go to agenda review, and agenda review could bring it up. Or if there was a refusal by agenda review, you could put it on the agenda to decide whether notwithstanding.
And so in terms of the agenda review, at what time would 1 or 2 or more council members ask for it to become part of the agenda review?
That would be up to the city manager, but I think that would be at any agenda review committee it could be brought up, and the mayor, of course, I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, when we go to the agenda review, the agenda items are already listed. And
That's
so,
when you ask to put it for the future.
Yeah, and so how do we ask for it to be put on the agenda review?
At the previous agenda review.
Oh, so you have to go to agenda review committee meeting to ask versus me just saying, hey, Mayor, how about putting it on the agenda for the agenda review?
Yes, you can do that. You can ask the mayor to put it on the agenda review.
Okay.
And we'll bring it, and the agenda review committee, whoever is there, will decide if they're going to put it on or not.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Hurst?
Mayor, there's been some recent developments in the solid waste field. You can see the county has opened their last cell of the landfill. It's going to fill up. If we could get a report sometime in the future about solid waste, I think it'd be helpful for the community at least to understand our efforts at recycling and how we have been pretty successful, but there's still a stream of solid waste that's going to have to go somewhere, and we're probably going to have to pay for it, and that means the residents. So just a quick, light report on solid waste in the future.
I could say it myself. Councilmember Dutra?
And maybe an update on the Manabiao project, what's going on there, the FedEx, the roundabouts, is that other property going to be developed? So if we can maybe have just an update like we did with the Metro today and the marijuana, that'd be great.
So that concludes adding agenda items and no emergency items added to the agenda. That concludes our meeting for today. Meeting is adjourned.